Good morning, Sydney. My name is James Norquay. It's good to see you here. Just kidding. James redirected me to this time slot. Could say he applied a penalty. I'm going to stop the SEO jokes now. He outranked me. Anyway, it's good to see you. We tried to make this happen for a long time. I think this is the third year that James had asked, and every year I was like, okay, next year. So this time I had to make it happen. I want to start this morning with a quick experiment. I would like you to raise your hand if you would buy a $10 product on ChatGPT. Okay, keep it up. If you would buy a $100 product on ChatGPT. Okay, higher. I want to make sure I see them all. Now keep them up if you would buy a $500 product on ChatGPT. Okay, a few. Some raise their hand now, but not at the $10 product. What's going on there? How about $1,000? Really high. $1,000 product. Wow, okay. 2. Good. Now, would you buy a $10 product on Google? Hands up. Okay, almost everybody. $100, hands up. 500? 1,000. Okay, significantly more. And why is that? The answer goes to the heart of what I'm talking to you about today. What we have to understand is that people, brands, and AI change at different speeds, but not at the same speed. Right? So users are typically a bit ahead of brands, and the question is, how do you match that speed? That's really what I'm talking about today. I'm going to skip the intro because Will did a fantastic job introducing me already. The one thing you have to know about me is that I profusely study AI, and I have a bunch of research that I'm presenting to you today to really make sense of where we are. Now, 12 months ago, something really important happened, and I call it the rift. The rift is the separation of organic traffic from organic ranks. As you can see at the hand of this chart, up until March 2025, those two basically went in parallel, right? Strong correlation, you get better ranks, you get more organic traffic, simple as that. But 12 months ago, that changed. Anybody here want to take a guess at what changed? Shout it in. Yes, I heard it from that corner, AI overviews. Thank you, Joshua. In March 2025, Google significantly ramped up the number of AI overviews in the search results. I have many examples that I brought for you today. And as a result of that, we're seeing that separation of organic ranks and traffic. And as a result, we need to find new ways to make sense of how much Google likes our website. Now, I think we often underestimate how many SERPs actually show AI overviews, because a lot of studies look at a broad range of keywords. But what I did is I looked at the 3 largest sites on the web by traffic, YouTube, Reddit, and Wikipedia. And I looked at how many of their keywords, non-branded keywords that is, show AI overviews. And I'm getting to about 50%. So I'm thinking we're moving towards a world where the majority of keywords will show AI overviews, and this problem is not going to go away. This is the new reality. There's a really important study from Pew Research that shows the effect of of AI overviews. So they found, when they looked at over 900 people, pretty robust sample size and pretty robust study, that when Google shows AI overviews, the click-through rate on organic search results is being cut in half. But what's much more interesting than that is this detail. Only 1% of all users clicked on links in AI overviews. And 1% is barely anything. So this is not really a click driver, right? This is a new experience, a new era. And it's not just AI overviews. It's also ChatGPT. There was a leak of ChatGPT data showing that answers that get over 600,000 impressions, like pretty good, get a 0.69% click-through rate, which is abysmal, and surprisingly close to that 1% that Pew Research found. And then lastly, it's not just ChatGPT, it's also AI overviews showing the same result. This is a little teaser of a study that I'm going to present to you in a moment. And it shows that AI mode has an almost 100% zero-click share. So these are not click drivers, right? These are not environments that are supposed to send traffic out, but answer users' question right then and there in the moment. To top that off, I looked at a whole bunch of B2B websites, and I found that referral traffic from ChatGPT has really been stagnating. The breaking point was August of last year, when referral traffic dropped by about 40 or a bit over 40%. And so up until that point, there was a realistic chance that maybe referral traffic from AI chatbots would eventually become significant, but I think that hope has died, right? Like, I think there's just no world in which those traffic volumes will keep up. Now, I brought one client example for you. And as you can see pretty clearly, organic search traffic is declining by 50% year over year, which is not something you really want to brag about at an SEO conference. But interestingly, conversions grew by almost 20% year over year. And so why is that? How come? And the reason is that purchase intent hasn't gone away. People still want to buy stuff. People still search. Traffic is just not a leading indicator anymore. And that brings me to the three core challenges that we are facing today. First of all, AI dominates everything, right? Mobile apps, web search, AI chatbots, whatever you have, you can freaking search the web in Excel. So that's the thing. Click-through rates as a result are kind of going down. We might still get to like a small, tiny baseline of clicks in the future, but it's nowhere near the volumes that we have today. And as a result, traffic is detaching from conversions. But conversions are not necessarily going away, right? People still need stuff. Now, how do we make sense of this new world? To illustrate that, I brought you two user behavior studies, one of AI overviews, one of AI modes, where we recruited 35 or 70 participants respectively. And you can imagine this like a lab where we have people at a computer searching, and we look over their shoulders, and we record everything that they see and everything that they say. We gave them 8 or 7 respective tasks to complete, and then had them speak out loud what they think and what they feel. And we're able, with the help of AI, to codify that to a very fine degree to truly understand how normal people interact with AI search results. And so the first result of those studies is that, interestingly, when it comes to the final answer, right, when it comes to the final click that people make before they stop their search journey, only 20% of people click on things in AI overviews or get information from AI overviews. It doesn't have to be click. But 80% get their final information or their final click from the classic search results, which tells us that even though traffic is going down significantly, these classic search results still play an important role, right? There's still value in ranking highly, even though we might not get as many clicks. Next, we looked at the same thing, like where are people going when they leave Google and when they complete their user journey? And we split those results by kind of the type of website that they're going to. And we found that 18% of the time, people click on UGC platforms like Reddit and YouTube to get their final answer. However, when Google shows AI overviews, that number jumps up to 30%. And when we looked at kind of the transcripts and what people are saying as to why they do that, we realized that they're validating the AI answer. So this is interesting user behavior that crept up, which is people get their answer from AI, but then they double check it, especially when it's risky, with what they perceive as other users, right? They go to Reddit and they're like, is this sneaker really legit? Like, is this the best screen, blah, blah, blah. Is this the best software? So they double check it, which means for us that being present on these platforms in most cases is important. Now, this is, the next finding is absolutely critical and changed my understanding of search completely. So we also looked at what is the evaluation process when people see AI answers or when they look at organic search results. What is the evaluation process? What do they ask themselves to see if that's the result that they want to click on or that they want to read? And when we found that the #1 filter is not relevance, but it's trust. So when people evaluate AI answers, they first ask themselves when they see a brand, do I know this brand? Do I trust this brand? And then they go to relevance. This is absolutely critical. Before users even ask themselves if a result answers their question, they ask themselves if they trust the source or the destination. So if you are not in the minds of your users before they search, you have a big problem, right? You're working uphill. Now, when we look at AI mode, we found that engagement generally is pretty high. On average, sessions in AI mode at the time of the study were over a minute long, which is roughly how long most people brush their teeth. The majority of results is text-driven, obviously, right? There's not a lot of rich results, with the exception of some shopping carts. But together, it means that people are highly engaged. They read the answers. And it's important for us to appear in these answers to influence the purchase journey down the road. Now, this is really interesting. We also looked at the few clicks that are still happening. Where are they actually going? The majority go to shopping results if they appear, which makes sense because we asked participants in the study to shop for products in certain cases or in some cases. And so, of course, they click on shopping carts when they appear. But 18%, 1 out of 5 people, when they get an answer that's satisfactory to them, would open a new tab and then directly navigate to the website as opposed to trying to click on something in AI mode. Right? So good luck attributing that. Right? There's no way of knowing where people are coming from without asking them after the purchase or sign-up process. So pretty critical. Where that leaves us is that generally trust beats relevance. And I want to pound this thing home because trust has already been part of EEAT, right? It's the T, and it's the most important factor in EEAT. And it finally makes sense to me when I saw this study. Trust beat relevance. People really engage with AI. It's not this kind of scanning behavior that we know from organic search, but people really read this stuff. They get the information that they need. But organic results still matter, right? We're not at a point yet where we can abandon and not care about organic results. They matter for many different reasons. And so based on these studies and based on these results, I want to introduce you my playbook for this new era of AI search. And this playbook is based on 2 different frameworks. I call them the visibility layer and the trust stack. Each of them have 4 different areas that I will walk you through step by step in the next couple of minutes, including some examples of how I applied these areas and factors and the results that they yield. These are also the frameworks that I apply with clients like HIMSS and Airwallex. You see some nice graphs go up and to the right. Make of that whatever you want, but this is coming from the field, right? This is not just theoretical academic knowledge. This is stuff that I've tested out. I'm going to show you how now. All right, let's talk about visibility. It really comes down to 4 things. First, additive content. How do you provide or create content that's truly original, that's fresh, that has the right style? And how do you groom and foster your reputation, which sounds like a term from 1999, but I promise you, like it's coming back. It's cool again. Okay, before we jump into that, it's really important to understand that content, if it's successful in 2026, is polymorphic, which kind of means that it lives in an open relationship, but it's more like an open relationship with different platforms, right? So in the pre-AI era, content mostly had to satisfy Google, right? Google web retrieval, Google checks the content, is it relevant for specific searches, show it, rank it, all is good. But now, content has many masters, if you will, right? There's not just different platforms from Google, ChatGPT, Perplexity, Reddit, YouTube, etc. But it also needs to be viable for AI training, for RAG, for web retrieval, and now for agents, right? Bless you. So there's many different things that Google, content has to do to be satisfactory. Okay, let's jump in. So additive content, what does that mean? Additive to me is the opposite of evergreen content. Evergreen content is the stuff that you find a good answer to from AI, right? There's very little marginal utility anymore to write a guide about what is or how to write. Like if it's not brand new or complex, then AI can answer it and we probably don't need it. So additive content, new original things, thought leadership, research, that is something that AI cannot yet provide. And one of the best ways to find topics and additive content for me comes from transcripts. So one pet peeve that I have with SEO is the classic keyword research process where we look at what terms are people probably looking for, ranked by search volume, and then we all go after the same terms. But there are other sources of topics that are important for our audience. And one of these sources are transcripts. For example, when your sales team has a conversation with a prospect, right? These are typically recorded. We can analyze these transcripts and then find topics and questions that people really care about. This is an example from a client where I applied this. We looked at 40, 50 call transcripts with prospects that turn into clients. And you can see that we found some really good topics that we otherwise might not have found. So we applied classic product and marketing questions like, what are the problems of the prospect? What are they using today? What are their fears, uncertainties, and doubts? And then out of that, we analyze it with AI, of course. You can use Claude Code or whatever. In this case, it's a tool called Humata AI. And we found these really cool topics that we then turned into content that performed way, way better than the stuff that we created with the classic keyword research process. And the reason is that these are topics that are top of mind for people that are in the market. Right? So you can see another nice chart going up into the right here. It had really good impact on organic search. But besides that, it also had a much, much higher conversion rate than the stuff that we had created before, because these are topics that are top of mind and important, and that's what additive content can look like. Okay, let's talk about freshness. Nothing new to any one of you here. We all know that fresh content is important. But interestingly, LLMs value fresh content more than Google does or search engines do. So there's a study from Ahrefs that looked at the content that is cited or performs well, how many days old is that content, and they found that the content is typically younger when cited on LLMs. And the reason is that LLMs obviously have a training data cutoff. There's only so much that they can ingest at a time. And when there are topics or information that they need that are not within their training data, they rely on live web retrieval. And then freshness is the #1 thing that they're looking for, obviously, right? They don't want content that's already in their training data. Aerops found that there's this high-level threshold of 3 months where content that's younger than 3 months generally performs best, but we have to be careful, right? There's a lot of context and nuance here. Some topics might need content that is not older than a week. In other terms, it's fine if the content is older than a year. So there has to be nuance that we apply. But what is interesting here is that this freshness factor works across any user intent. So whether you want to compare products or look for information or whatever, LLMs always prefer fresher content. And so I went out to one of my clients and we applied this. And what you see here is the citation rate. So citation rate across the board for the prompts that we are tracking. And as you can see, there is a jump where citation rate tripled. And we did a very simple thing to accomplish that. And all we did was to add a date to our landing pages that shows when the content was last updated. This is a large site, so this was multiplied across many thousands or hundreds of thousands of pages. And obviously, we did make real changes to the content on these pages, right? Or they automatically updated. But that simple change, just making it easier for an LLM to see how fresh that content is, already had a profound impact. Let's talk about style. Style really is about the way that you write. And I would argue this is relatively new in the AI world. Google didn't really care about the style as long as it was relevant, right? You had the right information in your content. And then, of course, users care about the style, right? The content has to be engaging. But LLMs, as opposed to search engines, really care about that stuff. So what I found is that, for example, definitive writing, very clear writing, gets you almost 2 times more citations. There's an analysis of over 1 million AI answers, and I looked at what does the content have in common, or what are the patterns in the content that gets cited. And what I found is that when you make it very clear what you're talking about, without too much fluff or storytelling or lore, you're being cited more often. Another stylistic factor that has been really interesting is entities. So entities are concepts, topics. They're essentially the things that you write about, and the more clearly you name these things, the more you're being cited, because it helps LLMs make associations between the tokens in your content, or in other words, it helps them understand what the content is about, right? So when you write stuff like, there are many good tools for this task, it's not cited as often as, these are the top tools, and you name them specifically. And then the last thing that I already mentioned is reputation. Web reputation, it's a mastermind of word crafting. But essentially, reputation is about how often and how are you talked about on the web. So we have studies here from Ahrefs and from SEMrush showing that web mentions are one, if not the most important factor deciding how often you show up in AI. And interestingly, across all the different AI chatbots, so ChatGPT, Gemini, Perplexity, etc., and across most topics or use cases or user intent. So this idea of your reputation, really, really critical. I also did an analysis of backlinks, because I was curious, do backlinks matter in this AI search world or not? Turns out they do have a profound impact, but I think it's a bit of a red herring. I think what's actually happening is that these are treated like web mentions, and LLMs care less about whether it's an actual backlink or a web mention. But what I have found is that quality is the most important aspect when it comes to mentions/backlinks. So volume, much less important. Quality, meaning being mentioned in the right context, on the right side, plays a much, much larger role than having lots of mentions across the web. One of my favorite things or ways to understand where I need to be mentioned is a very traditional SEO process. So you can either look at all of the keywords that matter to you and then see which domains have the highest market share or search share of these keywords, or you can do the same thing with prompts. Just take all your prompts, you see what are the platforms and sites that are most visible, and then you prioritize them. And when it comes to platforms like Reddit, you break that down by subreddit. But that's essentially a way for you to get started and think about, okay, where do I even need to be present? Two companies that have done a really good job at that, both clients of mine. One is Xero. Xero has this research hub called XSBI, where they publish research about small businesses, economic data about small businesses. And because it's new and unique and additive, it gets consistently cited, mentioned, and linked. And the other example is Ramp, fintech company growing pretty well. And Ramp built this AI index where they look at all the credit card spend data and what people spend their money on. And then they look at how much money goes to AI. They track that over time. And this is like prime data for publishers, for LLMs, because it's new and additive. Okay, let's talk about trust. Trust is all about the meta layer, right? So visibility is how you show up. Trust is how do you make people go with your answer, or if they still do, click on your answer. And the first part about trust is evidence. It's cool when you claim something, but you have to back it up. You have to bring receipts. You can do that in many different forms. It can be patents, it can be certifications, but it can also just be a lot of referencing of data and facts. So something that I do with clients is we look at the fact density of our content. And there's no perfect fact density, but generally we want to make sure that the content that we create cites relevant, fresh, and good data. The second thing, besides receipts or evidence, is experts. People follow people. And if credible and important people in a space talk good about your brand, that has a profound impact, right? As I mentioned earlier, people validate AI answers on user-generated content platforms. And so the same principle applies to influencers, creators, analysts, journalists. If they talk well about you, that leaves a lasting impression in your mind. And therefore, when you encounter that brand, you're more likely to believe their answer or to click on the result or even purchase from them. There's another side to evidence that I call validation. So one of my current clients is G2. I'm lucky to work with them. I had been there in-house for years long in the past. Now I work with them again. And one of the first things that I did is I looked at the relationship between software reviews and AI visibility. And what I found is that there's a small but robust and recurring correlation between software reviews and the visibility of these brands. Or in other words, reviews, doesn't have to be software, it can also be e-commerce, Trustpilot, Google Maps, whatever, but reviews are an important layer of consensus for LLMs where they see whether what a company claims to be is actually in line with what their clients are saying, right? So long story short, invest in reviews for AI visibility. They don't replace the basics, but they're a nice little top-off. And then lastly, reputation. And reputation I found very hard to quantify. You can look at things like branded searches, but it's not really that indicative. And then I found this concept from Dan Petrovich, you probably all know him, who talks about selection rate and selection bias. And the basic idea is that when you ask an LLM several times what are the recurring stable patterns that occur in the answer across all of these runs? We know that LLMs give you a slightly different answer every time you ask it a question, right? It's kind of a problem. But if you, for example, run a prompt 5 times consecutively, some elements and brands show up consistently. And that means that these LLMs have a high confidence that these brands or elements of the answer are actually critical and important. And so we can make use of that to understand, are we in that sample size or in that group of recurring elements or not? So that helps us understand what is our reputation with LLMs. You can do simple things of just like asking the LLM a bunch of times about your brand and then see what does it consistently say versus not. Okay, so to bring that home, a lot going on, but we can confidently say that the classic click funnel is breaking. And classic playbooks don't work as well anymore. As a result of that, we're moving from a world of clicks to a world of influence, where we try to influence users along the purchase journey. And the 2 critical components to that is showing up, meaning visibility, and then, of course, trust, which break down into the factors that I showed you in the last couple of slides, right? So visibility is really about additive content that is fresh, you have a good reputation, and then trust is about evidence, it's about experts, validation, and your reputation. Before I wrap this up for good, I share insights like these every week in the growth memo. Quick show of hands, who here is already subscribed? Okay, awesome. You're in good company, Amazon, New York Times, et cetera, that's the pitch. Now, good. Now, we're moving from an old to a new world. The old world is about a single platform, which is Google. The new world is about multiple platforms: Reddit, YouTube, Google, ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude, whatever you have. We're also moving from a world of broad intent, where we optimize for shorthead keywords, to a world of very specific intent, right? Prompts are very rich, on average 5 times longer than classic search keywords. So we need to make sure that we have the right content that satisfies these specific intents. We're also moving from a world of evergreen content to a world of additive content, right? New original insights that are not out there yet. We're obviously moving from a world of clicks to influence, and from a world of relevance to trust. So where that leaves us is that yes, brands, people in AI are all changing at different speeds, and the ones that win are the most trusted. Thank you very much.
Thanks everyone for coming today. We're going to have the Chris O'Brien Lifehouse. Someone is actually going to come here from the hospital this afternoon to talk about how the profits from the event are going to be used. So that's very special. But yeah, thank you to everyone today for attending too, because you've all helped with that cause. But firstly, who remembers this guy? It was the time of social media, social networking online. You know, it was the time of music, the time of bands, you know, a sense of community, and also customizing your profile. You know, everyone that remembered MySpace, there might be some younger people here today that won't remember it, but that was my profile back in the day. I used to do like nightclub promotions. I used to actually run some nightclub events and stuff like that. So that was a lot of fun. That's probably why I have a little bit of an events background. And that's what actually helped me get into SEO. One of the first sites I actually built was a MySpace layout site. So this was a site that had SEO as a traffic source, and it drove over 25 million visitors to that site. You know, and SEO started probably well over 29 years ago, you know, and every year someone says SEO is dead. You know, there's people from social media saying SEO is dead, paid search saying SEO is dead, ChatGPT saying SEO is dead, just random people on Twitter, X saying it's dead. And in that same time, SEO has grown from 0 to over $100 billion in a market. So the last time I checked Google Search Console, SEO is definitely not dead. This was for one of our clients, you know, over 100 million clicks from Google. So some clients are still getting massive traffic in Google, you know, and I've been in the SEO industry for over 20 years. I see a few people in the audience like Andrew down the front who's probably been in the same amount of time as me. And, you know, we've built one of the largest SEO and digital PR agencies in Australia. You know, I've also built up 30 digital assets that we run. So Today I'm going to be talking about primarily geo and digital PR strategies. So a few little things that are working. So the three topics today are going to be like LLM visibility or digital PR, and then some quick wins with geo, because people always want quick wins. All right, so the first thing, I'm guilty, we went hard on making some of these best SEO agency listicles. I reached out to a few friends with other agencies. I said, put me in your listicle, and like just people I know with sites. And the thing is, this got quick visibility in ChatGPT, This optimizing boys, they were showing up too. And the thing is, I started to think, this was like 6 to 12 months ago. The thing is, there's better ways to do this, because the thing is, listicles, anyone can make a top list. I see random countries from overseas that I've never heard of before. People making a best SEO agency Australia, and the agency's not even in Australia. The thing is, these listicles don't stick as well. They fluctuate. And the other thing is, it's kind of like using press releases. There's been a lot of talk, people doing press releases. They only show up for a couple of weeks and then they drop down pretty quickly. This is where digital PR comes in. Digital PR, and Kevin mentioned it in his talk earlier, tier 1 media is definitely one of the most important sources for LLMs. So this is an example of a digital PR asset that we built for one of our clients, Reckon. It had 239 links and it had 537 brand mentions. And the LLM citations for any query related to that, so if you search anything related to best city to start a business plus related queries, they have like 70% citation coverage through LLMs. So they're doing very well. If you search for it on ChatGPT, their study comes up, and then a lot of the sites that source it come up. The same thing with Airtasker. We've been doing digital PR for Airtasker for a while. Regan, the client there, is a pretty sophisticated guy. He saw this pretty early on too. So they're looking at areas where the business has a lot of potential, like mold is a big area for Airtasker. A lot of people have mold issues, I live in a terrace in Alexandria, and we had a mold issue in our downstairs bathroom, and I had to get a mold specialist out. So I didn't realize mold was such a big industry until the mold specialist came out to fix it, and he was good. But Airtasker's pushing that too. So we did, where are the moldiest cities in Australia? And this got 25 pieces of coverage and 52 brand mentions. So a lot of the LLM citations, and even in AI mode, you can see Airtasker is showing up. So this is all highly relevant to their business too. One of the worst things I see with digital PR is you see like an online casino making a digital PR asset about the best fish and chip shops in London. It's not relevant, Link relevancy is very, very important, I remember talking to a search quality rater, like a search quality specialist many years ago, and he said, link relevance is important. And I see that even more so now. Easy License, another one of our clients, we do these like, how much is it to cost, driving lessons cost in each state, 80 links, 210 brand mentions, and yeah, 40% of the LLM citations are covering this topic. That said though, this topic, a lot of people are doing this topic, especially in overseas markets. And as you can see, like it's showing up in ChatGPT. You get the idea, digital PR is a key driver of LLM success at scale. You can dominate this with hundreds of citations, and it really works well. So what's the digital PR strategy? What can you do to make this happen? The thing is, the digital PR sweet spot is what your brand cares about and what the news cares about, because a lot of people make the mistake with digital PR where they try to have a crack, but they make something that's very brand focused, and the news doesn't want to care about, like they don't care about it. Ideation comes from like, what are your goals of the company? In Airtasker's case, they wanted to target mold, pest control, things like that. That's their goal. What are the dream publications that you want to get on? One of the biggest pet peeves that I have with the Australian market is so many agencies just get links that are complete garbage. They're on sites like Mummy Mums, and you look at it and it's a site that links to casinos, it links to CBD, it links to some plumber in New Orleans, and then you got a link to your client site. It's complete garbage. Clients are wasting a lot of money. I see people come to us all the time and say, I'm getting 20 links a month. But I said, these 20 links that you're getting are raising the toxicity level of your link profile. So, you got to be so careful. It's quality. You want to be on dream publications. You want to be on sites that your mum knows about. You know, my mum, I can share her some of this stuff. You know, I can say, hey, mum, we were featured on 9 News. And she's like, wow. You also want to know, it's true. Like, you don't want to share sippy cup mum with your mum because she's going to be like, what is this garbage? But the other thing is, like, who are your main competitors? And then what are the conversations that you want to be part of, you know? You also want to see what's being covered in Australia already and what's being covered overseas. Because the thing is, the UK and the US markets, they are very advanced for digital PR. There's probably like 50 digital PR companies in the UK. They are pumping this stuff every day. So there's a lot of really good ideation that you can get from the UK and you can bring it to the Australian market. The other thing is you want to see what's trending, you know, Exploding Topics. That's a really good site. Google Trend and Glimpse. Everyone should be using this stuff. Social media monitoring, like everyone should be checking out TikTok trends. We get a lot of reactive ideas from TikTok trends. The other thing you can do is you can get ideation from sites like puddling.cool and Visual Capitalist. These are really good sites where you can get ideas. The other thing is you can find data that sparks analysis ideas too. So you can take Australian Bureau of Statistics data, you can take like sites from like data set searches, you can do like a freedom of information request to get data. The thing is, these government agencies, they present data quite poorly. So if you can clean the data set, you have to have a data team to do this, you can turn something not so sexy into something very interesting. The 2 types of campaigns that we do are quick win, so reactive and planned, and then hero, so survey, data, creative. What are quick wins? So a quick win, like we have a law firm that we work with, and basically anytime someone's going to do something silly, like every time at Christmas each year, you see people putting Christmas lights on their cars. What this law firm does is they get a list of the fines in every state, and then we pitch that to media. That was actually an idea that Chloe came up with from our team, so a really good idea. And the media loves this stuff. I think just that one campaign got about 40 links, and we push it every year too. So this is just from this one law firm client. You know, they've had 690 links, 867 pieces of coverage, 570 brand mentions, average domain rank of 68. Most of these links are .com.au links as well. And we also do SEO for this client too, so they're doing pretty well. You know, 125% increase in organic traffic and 258% increase in keyword rankings. The thing is though, if you're doing reactive, you only want to use real experts. Something that has really blown up in the UK market and a lot of sites are getting targeted are people that are using fake AI experts. There's a site in the UK called Press Gazette. They're calling out sites now and making like a blacklist of domains that are using fake AI experts. This is a really big story in the UK over the last couple of months. I have seen people doing this in Australia too. I was talking to someone at the mastermind yesterday, I think it was Matt, and he said, have you seen that site in the sleep niche that's using fake doctors? And I said, yes, I'm well aware of that. Because people pay for these fake doctors. You can tell they're fake in AI images too. They're easy to spot. The other thing is quick wins, like just quick little stories that the media cares about. You know, people want to know what areas the Sydney side is fleeing to in the country. Other little quick little reactive things, you know. I saw Dr. Josh here earlier. We did some reactive for him in the past. And things like Ozempic face, you know, that like what's trending? People love that stuff. As I said earlier, the hero campaign that I showed, this stuff works really well, but you have to have a data team because we had about 20 different data points on this article. The results from that were 108 links, 263 online articles, average DR of 52. And the advertising value, like the cost to actually buy these media placements was over 300K. Another one that we've done for Alliance is Australia's sweatiest cities. So we do like a study to show like what are the hottest cities. The thing about reactive and hero campaigns is with the hero campaigns, regional towns love when they're mentioned because in Australia, regional towns don't get a lot of love. Cities, everyone does data studies like Sydney's the best or Melbourne's the best. But when you say like Bendigo's the best, you know, you get You get the politicians in Bendigo sharing the digital PR. You get like randoms on Facebook like starting a thread about it. Like people really back like when a story covers like a regional town. That is a really good angle if you're targeting regional, because regional newsrooms in Australia, they're crying out for stories, you know. They don't get the hundreds of emails a day that city journalists get. They might get just a handful. So from that Sweatiest Cities, we had 19 links and 263 online articles. So I think that got syndicated pretty heavily. And it got 57 DR average, you know, so really good. Another one that we did was Movable Index. So this was a hero campaign that did really well. It's like an index of where people are moving to and from. Media loves this type of stuff. Like you got 27 links, 67 online articles, and yeah, 122 advertising value in terms of thousands. So really good, you know. A really good tool to track advertising value is called Stream. So Stream is a tool that you can basically, it tracks brand mentions in the media. So if you're mentioned in the TV, if you're mentioned in the radio, if you're mentioned in online sources, this tool called Stream, it picks up those sources and it gives you an advertising value. So really good tool. But yeah, people say SEO tools are expensive. When you start investing in these brand monitoring and PR tools, they are a lot more expensive. So geo, quick wins and things that we've tested. So yeah, these are things that we've been testing for over a year. Social sharing buttons for LLMs. I've tested this on a whole bunch of sites I own. Definitely works. A lot of people in the audience, I know Jared and Lockie, have tested this at scale too. Definitely works. You got to be careful because with this type of thing, Microsoft did a white paper and they said that they may devalue this strategy. That's for like automated prompting. But if you're doing user interacted prompting, it's usually fine from what I've been testing. LLM info page, this definitely works. Like I've seen this get picked up for citations in different LLMs. It's easy to do for enterprise businesses too. If enterprise businesses, they're never going to do like the social sharing buttons, but an LLM info page, it's very brand friendly. Awards pages, think about any awards that your business has. If you're a garbage truck company or you're doing garbage removals, try and think about what local business awards you can enter. If you're an agency, the APAC Search Awards is really good. You can get all these awards. LLMs love sourcing these awards. Also making separate pages about award wins can work really well too. Analyzing query fan-out patterns. This is a really good article by Metehan. Metehan is one of the top guys in the AI search space. He's based out of Turkey. We've had a bit of chit-chat back and forth. He really knows his stuff. So check out his blog if you want to learn about like how you can use Screaming Frog to do query fan-out pattern. One of the team members in our team actually developed another system to do query fan-out too. So definitely really hot. Ahrefs. I know we've got Patrick down the front here from Ahrefs. This is a really good Reddit strategy that Ahrefs has done. I think Ahrefs has one of the best Reddit strategies I've seen for a SaaS brand. The thing about Reddit, like if you start your own subreddit, you can get like LLM sources pretty quickly. Tim jumps on and does his own little AMAs. There has been a lot of like negativity around listicles. A lot of people spam them and they don't do them really well. One site that does listicles really well that I've seen in the market is called connectteam.com. They do best of pages really well. You know, they bring in a lot of unique data points. There's a whole bunch of reference, and they rank for some really competitive queries, not only in Google, but also in LLMs for a lot of their like highly competitive queries in the US market. You know, we do a bit of work with Steve Toth. We've partnered up with him, and he loves this site. AI search tracking. The easiest thing you can do is add on your search tracking fields, you know, add a section that says, we found you in LLMs. I added this to our site probably a year ago, and you'd be surprised like how many people like will select LLMs now as a source. Carl Hendy, who's a really good SEO guy up in the Gold Coast, I believe, he also made his own little custom one that I thought was pretty cool that I wanted to share, where people could actually type in the query as well. The other thing is you really want to get onto Foursquare. Foursquare, people probably don't even think about it, but OpenAI is sourcing data from Foursquare, so it's a very good site to get involved with. Apify.com. A lot of people complain about the cost of scraping data. Apify.com is a really good data scraper. Like people go and put up their own little actors on there that have already scraped data sets and things like that. There's a whole Australian section. You'd be surprised what people are scraping on this site. It's crazy. Ahrefs Brand Radar. I know Ahrefs is a sponsor today, so thank you to Ahrefs. They have a really good database of prompts. Highly recommend it. You know, I think there's like a big misconception with a lot of tools. They're vibe coding these LLM trackers, whereas Ahrefs is taking a different approach, and they've got their whole brand radar. We've been using it for a while, and highly recommend Ahrefs. But I also like Hall. So Hall is another sponsor of the conference. They have a really good tool too. So they're a local company out of Sydney. So check out Kai and the team. He's here today. But I want to leave you with a key message today. So after 20 years in the SEO and probably like 16 years speaking at events, this was a photo from SMX Sydney back in, I think like 2010 or 11. I actually was speaking with Dan Petrovic on stage. So he was, I think, before or after me, asking a few curly questions down the front. So that was good memories. But the thing is, like, this conference we started this conference, you know, it's good for a lot of young people to come to your first conference. I really like to hear that. Like when people come up to me and say, oh, like, thank you for running the conference. Like my first event, I learned a lot. That's what I want to hear. These events are a lot of work, I'm not gonna lie. But it's good for the community. Even like SEO Collective in Australia and the SEO Beers, they run a lot of little events. They're really good for the community too. So if you get an opportunity to go to these local events, like make an effort to go, because you can meet some really great people. Like I've met some really good people at events over the years. But yeah, so this event has now developed into a charity event. So basically in the past 2 years, I spent like 1.5 months in hospital. So I had sepsis, I had collapsed lungs, I had 2 laparotomy surgeries, I had a 30-centimeter hernia. It was a freaking disaster. So yeah, basically, one thing I've decided to do after spending, like I spent a little bit of time at Chris O'Brien Lifehouse. I got to walk around and see the great work that they're doing. You know, we've decided to donate all the profits through this event for 2026, 2027, 2028 for them, you know. So everyone here today, you have helped raise money. So yeah, thank you to everyone today that has helped raise money. But the other thing is, as an SEO, you need to start thinking, how can I give back more, you know? A lot of people like to boast online in SEO, like, and I've been to a lot of conferences overseas and masterminds and stuff, people boasting like I make $100 million a year, I'm a big dog. But what I like to hear, I've been to so many events like that, like online casino people from like all sorts of places, you know? And like the thing is, what I think is a bigger flex is, you know, when you talk about like how you can help give back, you know? So it could be a donation to someone in need, you know, it could be helping a doggy rescue charity with SEO. You know, my mom's part of a dog rescue charity, she loves that. It could be helping a charity with SEO. It could be helping a small business that's had their SEO traffic destroyed, you know. I know a lot of people here today are very good operators, but I'll be honest with you, there's some shocking players in the market that just destroy businesses. You know, we've all seen the news.com.au articles about how people are just taking money and signing people onto long-term contracts they can't get out of and not doing any work. It's a disaster. So try and give back to small businesses, because nothing's worse than getting a phone call from someone who's in tears, who's had their Google traffic decimated by a dodgy operator. So think about today how you can give back, you know. The other thing is, like, if you want to add me on LinkedIn, and you want the slides, we're going to send out all the slides and the videos in a couple of weeks, by the way, too. So just add me on LinkedIn if you want to have a chat, or you want to ask any further questions. Yeah, thank you everyone for coming today.
Hi everyone, I'm Lauren. Where are my in-house SEOs? Can I just have a, okay, maybe some agencies working on local SEO as well? Yeah, okay, cool. Yes. So yes, I'm Lauren Schwartz. I'm the digital strategy manager for Made to Match. We're a national cleaning company specializing in regular house cleaning, NDIS cleaning, and DVA cleaning. I'm from the East Coast of the US, but I live in Brisbane now. So hopefully you've heard of Philadelphia. Big Eagles fan, big Phillies fan. If you're a sports fan, I am that type of person who will scream at the TV, flip off the TV, you know, that kind of fun stuff. But yes, I studied broadcast journalism at the University of South Carolina. I wanted to work in sports, but I ended up in Brisbane instead when I graduated, working for both a digital marketing agency and in-house at Made to Match. So for the first few years, I was in-house and agency side, but I much preferred being in-house. I love that you get to take that deep dive and build connections to grow your business. So as mentioned, digital strategy manager at Made to Match, doing all things organic search, organic social. In terms of my talk today, local SEO is typically associated with just GBPs. And yes, GBPs are really important, but it's a lot more than that, right? So today you can expect to learn about how to build a local brand that dominates no matter where people search. So I want to start with, do you know the name of your cleaner? And if you don't have a house cleaner, maybe it's your office cleaner at work. Think about if you actually know their first name, if you've ever even spoken to them. How are you supposed to know the name of your cleaner when most cleaning companies have stock photos on their websites? Right? It's one of many reasons that the cleaning industry is pretty shitty. And it's not just the cleaning industry, let's be real. There's a lot of industries that just rely on stock. But as a customer, you don't know who's showing up to your house. You don't know if you can trust them to be in your home when you're not there, when they're going to show up at your house if it chops and changes every week, and how much you have to pay until you're finished cleaning, whether you have to pay cash or bank transfer. It's just uncomfortable and awkward and not a great experience. If you've ever read negative reviews for cleaning companies, you'll see many of the pain points customers have. Communication, reliability, responsibility. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. The cleaning industry is associated with unskilled labor, the gig economy, sham contracting, which is when you treat contractors like employees and they don't have any rights. As a cleaner, you need to work under an ABN, typically, for cleaning jobs. So that means you're a subcontractor, you're not working under the company's ABN, it's your own ABN, which means you don't have a safety net if you get injured, which is common in cleaning. There's no workers' comp if you're a subcontractor. You don't have any annual leave for a holiday. And most importantly, you don't get paid fairly or on time, and sometimes you don't get paid at all. I've heard many horror stories, unfortunately. And to give you an idea, cleaning agencies hide behind great pay rates for their subcontractors when really there's plenty of hidden costs, just to give an idea of a few. Not to mention, most subcontractors won't read the fine print of their contracts because they're so long. This is taken from the cleaner manual from one of Australia's largest cleaning agencies. It is on their website. I didn't just go and hack this. There's many alarming details in it, but for me, it's one of these in particular where if the client isn't happy with your work, not only will you be out of pocket for it, but also you'll be charged for another contractor to go back and do the job. Do you know how picky people are about their homes? There's a lot of clients that won't be happy the first time around. Feels a bit unfair to me that you don't end up getting paid at all for your hard work. So at Made to Match, we were just like all the other cleaning companies, essentially acting like a middleman, connecting customers to independent contractors, really just a lead gen business. But then COVID hit, and overnight, our 200 plus contractors on the books around Australia returned to their home countries because again, cleaning is an unskilled job. There's not a lot of Australians that really think it's a job that they want to do. And so as a result, we had to think about how we wanted to pivot. And for us, we went back to, what does the best cleaning company look like? How do we take this as an opportunity to reimagine what we're doing as a business? And so, for us, that was consistency, consistent uniforms, equipment, friendly faces. For us, this meant permanent employee cleaners. Permanent part-time employee cleaners employed by Made to Match directly, not under their own ABNs. This is the best experience for customers. You have that consistency. You have that reliability that if their cleaner who shows up every week is sick, they can have someone fill in that has the same uniform, the same equipment, the same trustworthy customer support team. And for cleaners, it's finally a job that Australians actually want. They have stability. They have paid leave. They have sick leave. So we took the leap and began hiring our permanent employee cleaners instead of contractors, investing in people and creating real careers in the domestic cleaning industry. So just to give you a sense, I put together this quick comparison of, an advertised pay rate, just an example, and how that ends up differing between contractors and employees. I would take $15 an hour more. I don't know about you, but again, there's a lot of hidden costs. It's just doesn't end up best for the person, right? So, if we're going to hire permanent employees who are paid cleaning award rates, they're paid annual leave and sick leave, super, car allowance, they have their equipment, their uniforms, inducted, trained, one-on-ones regularly, it's a huge investment, both time and money. And honestly, it only began paying off a couple of years ago. So here's our revenue growth from the last 5 years to a 10 million a year business today, built entirely on organic search. We only established a PPC budget in 2025. So if this investment was going to work out, it meant that we had to actually build a brand. SEO's favorite word, right? Not just rank, but build trust from scratch. And there's an extra layer to consider where we're not just building a brand for clients, but we're also building one to attract employees. The cleaning industry is notorious for turnover. And so if we want to have long-term employees, we need to attract those people. And we need to appeal to the type of people who want to stay with us for the long run. So to see the power of brand in local SEO, I want to zoom in on one market that surprises people. Who's been to Geelong? Oh, wow, that's pretty good. I had never obviously heard of it being from Brisbane. Most people only think about major cities when it comes to local SEO. You think of Sydney, you think of Brisbane and the competition in there with local SEO, but it's actually the perfect case study to go into Geelong and to demonstrate the power of building a brand. But first I want to throw it back to some local SEO basics because I want to give some tangible stuff for us to take away from here. So suburb pages, yes, they still work in 2026. You have your clean URL structure with your service, your city, your suburb. Make sure you have your interlinking down. You throw in some breadcrumbs on page and some schema on the back end to help Google differentiate between your pages. Suburbs have been a part of our SEO strategy since the beginning, and then they're key to showing up for cleaners near me searches. No, you don't need to put that actual phrase on your page. You just need to have the suburb in that location to show up. But are you creating your suburb pages from a plugin or from AI and just blasting them at scale across the country? Or are you creating them based on how locals actually search? For me, living in Brisbane and not even being from Australia either, I would never know that Geelong locals say on the surf coast because it's not a suburb you can find on a map. It doesn't have a postcode, it's a group of suburbs. I asked our team members in Geelong how locals refer to different parts of Geelong so that I can actually meet local search intent. Think about Sydney. I don't live here, but I know there's the eastern suburbs and the inner west, but those are groupings of suburbs. They're not on a map. And one mention of Google Maps, because yes, it is still very important for local SEO to embed your Google Maps on your location pages. I'm just intentionally not focusing on them. So your basic foundations of local SEO, you should be implementing, but for the sake of time, let's keep going and get into some proper localization. We have headshots of our real cleaners in Geelong. We have their titles, how long they've been with us, when they join our team, so our clients know that cleaners stay with us for years. We have testimonials from the real clients, specifically mentioning those cleaners by first name. We have action shots of Grace and of Paris and other field staff cleaning in Geelong. And yes, I flew to Geelong and I took these photos and videos on my iPhone. And yes, there's probably more sustainable ways of doing it, but for us, it's what we had to do. And it's so clients can see that we're actually cleaning homes in their city. Because a house in Geelong is built a lot differently than a house in Brisbane. My Queenslander house in Brisbane is not going to be trustworthy to people in Geelong. Don't give people a reason to doubt you and to wonder if you're just faking it. Don't be lazy. So you should be creating content that is intrinsic to your business, and it can't be replicated by competitors because it's built for your business. For me, our competitors have ripped off our page layouts, our blog post templates, even our cleaning checklists. I don't know why, but they can't replicate our unique images, our testimonials, our location-specific content about our field staff. If they can just slap their logo on it, then you're doing it wrong. Competitors can't rip this off. It's specifically written for our team. We have our team leader, Cherie, our trainers. Think about what you want to see as a person booking that service in that specific location as much as you can. And yes, we still use secondary keywords and in our headings and our paragraphs because this is local SEO after all. But we're really just scraping the surface. And thanks to AI and things are gonna get even more fun for us. And so I just wanted to give you some inspiration that there's a lot that you can do with this. For us, we have over 700 bookings in Geelong for this month. And after every booking, we send a customer a ratings email to rate their service out of 5 stars, make sure they can provide feedback, make sure we can maintain high quality. And these internal ratings can become automated on our suburb pages so that they're showing up as local, unique content in the specific postcodes for those suburbs. How many services have we completed in that suburb? What types of services have we completed? Were they monthly, weekly, fortnightly, flat rate, hourly? We have over 30 permanent employee cleaners in Geelong, and I already have photos of them on our pages, but what if I live in Lara up there, and obviously the cleaners that can service Lara are different than the cleaners that can service Armstrong Creek. So what if I'm on that suburb page and I can see the names of the active field staff that specifically suburb Lara, and then I book in a service and I have already seen Paris on the website and then Paris is assigned to my booking? That would build trust. What I'm getting at here is that our local SEO strategy is building a moat around our business. And when you think about a moat, it's the castle that you want to protect, right? Your business, you want to have the water around your business. You want to keep widening that moat to protect your business from the competition, from the impacts of AI and Google algorithm updates. Our competitors genuinely cannot replicate what we're doing with our employee model, but also with all of this local and unique content, right? Their entire business models will be changed. It would take them years to catch up. And that's what you should be doing. How can you keep separating yourself from the rest? So your website may be your SEO foundation, and again, very, very important, but to properly build that moat around your business, you need to actually take your efforts further. How do we feel about this, people? Triggered? Skeptical? I was very skeptical. I really was. And then I find myself here a year later. If you want to build a brand, you need to be visible everywhere. People search everywhere. They don't just search on Google, they search on TikTok, they search on YouTube. Can our competitors create 6 videos a week for social media? No. They make AI slop and they try, but you can see right through it. I'm not a social search expert, but I will tell you that if you're not on here or you're on the right platform for your brand, you're missing out on a very effective way to get your brand in front of the right audiences. For us, we can reach all of our major customer segments, private clients, NDIS clients, DVA clients. We can reach these different audiences by creating the curated content that resonates with them, using hashtags. The NDIS community in particular are super engaged on TikTok, super engaged. And in traditional SEO and Google and search engines, we already have NDIS cleaning authority, which is, again, amazing. But what about the people who aren't searching for a new provider yet? But they're not happy with their current provider. They're starting to feel, I'm tired of them canceling on me. I'm tired of them sending a different cleaner every time. Are they billing me properly? And so, we create content, written content, blog posts. We create videos to support it about these pain points, and we reach our audience at an earlier stage before they have to search. And then obviously when they're ready, they come straight to us. It had over 1,000 views, 9 saves, actual comments with people asking genuine concerns. And while reaching our customers on social media is pretty important, even more importantly, we can reach people who love cleaning. Because again, the cleaning industry is notorious for high turnover. We actually always need more supply to meet the demand. And so how do we try to find these cleaners before they're searching on Indeed and Seek or getting picked up by another cleaning agency? We create this content and it resonates with them. Who doesn't love toilet cleaning ASMR videos? That goes viral. People love it. And that's how we can reach that audience that otherwise we would have not reached. So don't sleep on static Facebook posts either. I just wanted to throw that in there because they are a really clear way to get your messaging across and drive valuable traffic to your website. Whether it's your recruitment, your careers page, your blog posts, don't sleep on them. And before you tell me this is a lot of work, it is. I'm not going to bullshit you. It's a lot of work. But that's why you just need to prioritize. Don't spread yourself thin. If you're going to do it right. And when you do it right, you gain visibility, which leads to recognition, which leads to the Holy Grail. Thank you for the Jay-Z walk-up music, Kevin. Branded search, and which in turn results in more visibility. Google wants branded search. We want branded search. But you can't get branded search without a damn brand. And so, yes, and the screenshot is from SEO Gets, which I would highly recommend. It's a much better version of Google Search Console. We know our localization and our search everywhere strategy is working when we have these branded queries to show for it. We have made to match Geelong, made to match reviews, made to match jobs. That one in particular, again, think about we're just paying to play on Indeed and Seek. You can't really separate yourself on those platforms as much, but if people see us on social, they already know they're searching for a job with us. And yes, the visibility translates to LLMs too. I intentionally made it an afterthought because for us, building that brand, building that strong SEO foundation is what you need to show up here. So I do just want to remind you, because again, I know there's not as many maybe in-house teams here, but local SEO at scale is achievable. We ball on a budget at Made to Match. It's just me and my 5 amazing team members in the Philippines who are all full-time employees of Made to Match. 2 content writers, SEO assistant, dev just hired, very excited about that, and a social media manager. So to wrap it up, how to build a local brand beyond the map pack. SEO fundamentals, think like a local and speak like one. Build that content specifically for your brand that nobody else can take. Build the moat, build that moat and think about how you can keep setting yourself apart. Be present everywhere and be committed. If you half-ass things, you're gonna get a half-assed result. Don't just throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks. Again, think about what makes the most sense for your business. So I'll circle back to the question we started with, and I wanna ask you what this looks like in your industry. I think Patrick Stox was saying at the panel the other night, just be a better business. How can you be better and stand out from the rest by building real trust? Not just the trust signals that Google wants, but the kind that people need. So we've just rolled out our brand to the New Zealand market. We've rebranded our cleaning business in New Zealand. If I've got some New Zealand SEOs, I know there's some here. I would love to connect with you and chat about New Zealand SEO as we roll out our employee model there. But in general, any digital marketers, local SEO, service businesses, I'd love to chat. Please connect with me, send me a message on LinkedIn, book in my calendar so we can chat. And thanks for listening.
I've been sitting with this for a while now, watching as the SEO world fractures, and wondering, is this the best we can do? Sitting here, staring into an uncertain future of technologies that are evolving faster than any of us can keep up with, and wondering, is it even worth it to try? Sitting here, reflecting on the fear seen in executives' eyes as they grasp for data like children clutching a comfort blanket, and wondering, how did we get here? But wondering is a mistake. That's what brings on the flashbacks. The arrival of ChatGPT and its brethren met with a feeble attempt to block the bots, but those who did only wounded themselves. AI taking over Siri search, taking over meta search, and the inevitability of Gemini taking over Google search. AI overviews, AI mode, AI seeping into Microsoft Office, Teams, Windows, Edge, creeping into Google Discover, YouTube, Gmail, and Workspace, all feeding back to their omnipresent smart assistant, allowing AI to take personalization to a whole new level of intimacy, but all within their walled gardens. And in this environment, AI thrived. It grew beyond search. It was entertainment, discovery, an advisor turned friend or lover, with whom you had deep, context-rich conversations. It expanded search into these new realms, one made up of all of the questions that previously went unasked because they were too complex, too contextual, too nuanced. It began to understand not only your words, but the worlds behind them, your preferences, your patterns, building an uncanny understanding of you in much greater detail than cookies ever offered, cherishing every moment mentioned in memories. New models, new connection methods, MCP, ACP, agents, and now AI can take actions on your behalf. So you gave it more access to your life. No longer constrained to your laptop or phone, it's always with you, live in your glasses, your watch, your car, your home, a companion to continually converse with. But even that wasn't enough for AI. They wanted more insights. They wanted to know all of your unspoken behaviors and desires, and that brought on the browser wars. And as we watch the pointless battle between Comet and Atlas, knowing that Chrome is going to control that empire, knowing that Google already has all of the insights from Android, it is clear, more so than algorithms ever did, AI will act as gatekeepers to digital visibility, filtering options before humans see them, or simply making purchase decisions autonomously, bypassing traditional touch points and reshaping customer engagement. Success can no longer be measured in website clicks, as much as AI's influence over users is untrackable, untraceable, undisclosed, hidden in the depths of data, yet perilous to ignore, for it is the minds of these machines that will decide which brands remain visible and which will vanish, buried in a flood of AI slop that blankets the internet in gray commoditization. And as we look back on the original version of ChatGPT, now seeming as outdated as Netscape, we realize it's only been 3 years. And what have we achieved in this time? Because as things are progressing, marketing is becoming increasingly strategically empty. We're being asked to ideate new LLM tactics, to think outside the box, to go from ranking in search engines to building influence in AI systems, yet we remain shackled to these short-term performance metrics of directly attributable clicks and conversions. And so when we try to invest in content marketing or video or social or digital PR or any other brand building initiative, and they produce low initial conversions, they are dismissed as unimportant, and they remain underinvested. Yet it is these channels which influence the AIs and algorithms that actually make decisions on what is going to get recommended and what is going to convert. The world is shifting around us, yet we remain focused on yesterday rather than planning for tomorrow, making it inevitable that you will awake one morning too late to discover you have been optimizing for the wrong KPIs. And so I sit here strategizing. How can we do better? And the first thing is to stop focusing on Google when you're setting your marketing strategy, because their guidelines will limit your growth. Let's take EEAT as an example. We've got these quality rater guidelines that SEOs have interpreted into prescriptive tactics. So we're telling ourselves, hey, you need to go and use first-person narrative. You need to add author pages. You need to showcase awards, etc., etc., etc. These so-called best practices emerge, but not because of scientific study or rigorous testing or certified standards from official bodies, but because of collective repetition within the industry echo chamber. Now, I'm not saying that EEAT has no value, but I do want you to recognize that when all of your competitors are doing the same actions from the same playbook, this isn't a competitive advantage. This leads to conformity, commoditization, Kardashians. And let's be real, that is not the true face of expertise, authority, or trust. So if you're following these tactics, you're going to end up with a whole lot of filler marketing. Now, I'm not saying that this is not a good practice. I'm just saying it's really common practice. That is a defensive play to not lose position. And then AI's come along, and what's been our reaction? Well, we're all flocking to LinkedIn in order to comment to download the 24-step guide to GEO checklist. And again, we're sitting there and we're calling this strategy. If you want things to actually change for the better, stop reading Google guidelines and start reading a thing called books. Read the work of Les Binet, Peter Fields, Andrew Tyndall, Jenny Romanikou, Byron Sharp. These are the types of people who have been studying marketing as a science. They don't rely on channel tactics. They're sitting there and creating these mental models which are grounded in decades of research that prove there are law-like marketing strategies that always work. And they've been measured and proven to do so since we began doing them back in the 1930s. Now, these laws tell us that at any point in time, depending on the industry, anywhere between 5 to 30% of people are in market, meaning that they are actively searching or ready to buy. But not all of these are using Google search. They're using Facebook or TikTok or ChatGPT or Instagram or whatever other search platform they choose. But the majority are not searching at all. The majority, when they move in market, know what they want to buy, who they want to buy it from, and they simply go direct. So if you want to reach all potential buyers, then you need to reach people before they search, before they move in market. That necessitates building brand salience with out-of-market audience. The people who are not currently interested in purchasing your product, they may not even be aware of the need. But targeting these future buyers is the biggest growth opportunity for every single company in this room. What we need to do with SEO is make it the first thought, no longer only the last search. And in order to achieve this, we need to target the entire addressable market with two different types of marketing. Of course, we need to stimulate sales from in-market audiences with short-term targeted activation channels like search, like shopping, like ChatGPT. But we also need to build up this brand preference with brand building reach channels like Discover and YouTube and social and podcasts and digital PR. Not because those people are going to click today, they're not. Not because they're going to convert this month, they're not. But because in 6 months' time, when they move in market, they will choose you and you won't have to go and try to win them through search as a last touch point. And many of you in the room will already be doing both of these types of marketing. But at what ratio? I want you to put your hands straight up in the air if you are dedicating more than 10% of your marketing energy, budget, and resources towards brand building initiatives. Okay, I'm scared. What about 20%? Keep your hand right up in the air. 40%? 60? I've lost almost all of you. And this is indicative of SEO's addiction to performance marketing. Yet multiple research papers have shown that the vast majority of your efforts should be spent on brand building channels and the minority on activation. Now, this is going to differ the exact ratio depending on your brand, the market size, the market conditions. But as an approximation, you should be spending 60% of your time on brand salience and only 40% of your time, effort, and energy and resources on activation. But I know since AI has come along, a lot of people have been telling you to go do brand, and they haven't actually told you how. I've told you now why. Let's talk about how to make this concrete, how to make it measurable, how to make it meaningful. And that is achieved by something that's not included in any Google guideline. It relies on a 4-letter word starting with F, which is, of course, fame. Making the brand central to the category conversation. So it is highly visible, linked, shared, mentioned, included. Because the more people are talking about one brand, the more other people want to buy that brand. And there are 3 core drivers of fame: showmanship, distinctiveness, and distribution. Now, for a very long time, SEO has focused on being efficient. So we've been doing programmatic SEO. We've been using generative AI now to create our articles at scale. And slowly, without really realizing it, we've lost the one thing that makes marketing effective. And that is showmanship, the art of producing content that is actually worthy of attention, that stands out in the category, that makes an impression in the user's mind, not only in your metrics. And this is unlikely to come from rational messaging. When you're focused on communicating services or savings or other salesy copy, yes, this is great for activating in-market audiences, and yes, you do need to do that. But if this is all that you do, you're going to be constantly chasing your tail because competitors can copy your copy anytime that they like. But with messaging that's driven by the brand personality, by narrative, by emotion, that sells a feeling, not a feature, not only can that connect to the entire addressable market, but with such emotional copy, it's shown to consistently outperform rational messaging. Because when I feel something, I engage more deeply. And engagement leads to memory. And memory leads to brand preference. And that is what spurs long-term growth. And maybe you're thinking, emotional messaging is great for some, but I work in a boring industry. Look, I recognize that industries have different emotional baselines. Sports is much more interesting than insurance. That's not an excuse. You need to bring the feeling. And this doesn't need to be excitement. This could be humor, relatability, trust, compassion, curiosity. The fact that IKEA can make moving boxes emotional proves that there are no dull industries. There is only dull marketing, which is becoming increasingly common because we're handing over messaging to these machines, unwittingly knowing that AI can only create commodity content unless a human is in the loop. that we're making content that is middling by design of these AI systems. And the problem is when everybody is copying the same tired formula that they've been copying from other people because someone reverse engineered a ranking algorithm back in 2003, and we've been using that as an instruction manual ever since, everything kind of blends in. And then how does the human make the choice on what to take? What's worthy of my attention? I'm just going to default to the first one that I see, which is fine if you're the category leader, but it's a big problem if you are the challenger brand. And choosing dullness, this has a cost. It doesn't simply fail to persuade, it sends negative signals to not click through to your website, to not watch your video, to not engage with your content. And this makes that visibility worse than worthless because all of that teaches these AIs and algorithms to no longer include your content. So this dullness, it forces marketers to buy what SEO could be earning for free with showmanship. And then we sit there and we complain that the offline marketing or the branding teams get all of the budget. Do you know why they're getting the budget? They do great marketing like this. You're doing marketing like this. Stop making it about rational attributes and packaging. Let's add the fun of some imaginative play. Let's stop writing titles for algorithms illustrated with stock photography, and let's write curiosity-driven headlines and put some scroll-stopping personality into that imagery. Stop producing soulless corporate scripts. Tease the user. Show that there's a little bit more of the story to know. And if all else fails, if your brand is completely devoid of personality or narrative or emotion, then you better be pretty and bring that superior technical execution, because it doesn't matter how you achieve it, but it does matter that you do grab that user's attention. But even with peak showmanship, if that content isn't associated back to the brand in the mind of your audience, it does very little to actually grow brand salience. And this is where distinctiveness comes into play. I want you to all think of a commercial, one that had a celebrity in it, one that made you laugh, one that everybody was talking about. What was the brand? You often remember the ad, but not the advertiser. And digital can suffer from this same curse. Because yes, every web page has a logo at the top. And yes, eye tracking studies shown that it is glanced at upon page load, but a peripheral glance does not attention make. Alone, that logo is not enough. Tell me, can anyone name these three brands? Anyone? You are looking at some of the biggest fitness brands in the world, but without the header logo, you're all lost. And this is the problem with commodity content. If I can take a piece of creative from your website or from your socials, and without any significant creative edits, plonk that onto your competitor, and it still works, that piece should never have been published, irrespective of how many sessions it generated, irregardless of whether it went viral. Because visibility alone is not enough. Clicks alone is not enough. Interaction alone is not enough. Showmanship can capture that attention, but if you do not have distinctiveness to link it back to your brand, the actual marketing impact is largely lost. The strongest brands understand this. And so they don't rely on a single branding element. They add additional non-name elements to help drive home who the brand is. These are known as distinctive brand assets. Logos, taglines, colors, characters, symbols, styles, sounds, all of these can help with that quick brand recognition. But when you're sitting there at your computer and you're looking at Google Search Console and you're looking at Google Organic and Google Analytics, and you're wondering, why for 3 months has my branded search traffic continuously gone down? It's not going to occur to you because some dumbass developer took away the fav icon. That Google's doing your dirty because they forgot to put in the structured data image. That Amazon has not correctly named its brand entity in the knowledge graph Amazon. These companies spend millions a year on branding and have forgot basic digital coverage. Don't make their mistake. Make sure that you have the correct site name, the knowledge graph entity, your fav icon. Look at the imagery that's in your organization schema. Look at how you're using open graph tags. But this is not as simple as just slapping a logo on everything. Distinctiveness is more than that because attention spans, these are measured in milliseconds online. And the best brands understand this. They understand that they need to cultivate a whole palette of distinctive assets to support that rapid brand recognition. That way, on the scrolling shelf of Google Shopping, you're not just one more golden bottle on a wall of Off-White, but you stand out through your brand colors and packaging. They don't blend in with every other beer hall, but they lean into style to stand out, that they won't remain unnamed in a short video carousel, but it is clear to identify who is behind that piece of content. You have to find a way to go beyond the branding basic of logo because System 1 research has shown that it is actually the least effective of your digital assets, with things like characters and audio cues being more than twice as effective than a basic logo. But most brands don't have either of these. Don't be that brand. Map the assets that you have in your arsenal and understand how they're currently applied across all digital surfaces, knowing that the more distinctive the work, the more effective the marketing. But having showmanship and being distinctive is not enough. You need a stage. You need to be on search, on discovery, on entertainment surfaces. You need to increase your digital availability. The problem is most sites see published as the finish line. Distribution, that's an afterthought. Reach infrastructure is often underinvested, and this is holding back the brand growth. This is where AI should actually be used, not in content generation, but in content transformation, to take that text and customize it for each surface that it has to go on so it's in the right brand voice for that platform. To take an image and crop it to an appropriate size so you're not cutting off somebody's head. To sit there and reconstruct the content of an article into audio format or into video format. And this is where AI, APIs, other integrations really come into play. You want to get that rapid indexing of your content. You want to distribute that across all social networks, not just the big one that you have the resources to manage. You want to sit there and think about, how am I distributing this through push notifications, through email platforms? What am I doing with my colleagues in the paid ads team to make sure that this showmanship-worthy content is getting the play that it deserves? And now, all of this is generally when someone will point out, but I don't have budget. I don't have resources. I don't have buy-in. And I understand this, but this is what makes a competitive advantage. This is the moat. This is why some brands grow into category leaders, but most will inevitably stay small. And if you want to be that success case, then this is how you have the conversation with your C-suite. I never, ever want to hear the words impressions, views, clicks, comments, likes, shares, sessions, conversions, and certainly not rankings. None of these metrics actually give you good perspective on marketing in isolation. Say the whole market heats up and your conversions grow 5%, but your competitors all grew 20%. You've lost market share. You've left money on the table. You've hurt your brand, but you're not aware of this because you're not looking at measuring marketing in context of the market. True KPIs, these provide perspective on effectiveness, and the best KPI is market share. But the challenge with market share is it's not frequently reported on. You're going to need a competitor's financial filings, or you're going to need industry reports, or you're going to need to do your own research with a market research firm. And this isn't going to be happening on a weekly basis. This is something that you might have access to once or twice a year. And we cannot fly blind in digital for that long. And so this is why the best metric for digital marketing is share of voice, because there is a consistently proven correlation between share of voice and market share movements. Now, the thing to know about share of market and share of voice is that they sit in an equilibrium. So if your share of voice rises above that equilibrium, your market share is going to rise to meet it. And if it falls below, your market share will slide. Think of it like gravity, but for brands. Now, this also explains why you can work hard all year long and your metrics remain stable. It's because your competitors are working hard too. So much of your activity is to simply stop you from shrinking. This is a baseline tax every brand must pay to avoid losing their market share. But if your brand has 10% market share and you achieve 20% share of voice, that excess share of voice is predictive of growth. And for every 1% of market share, you need approximately 10% excess share of voice, although this is going to vary depending on your brand strength, depending on your competitor strength, depending on the market context. Now, the problem is that these AI platforms are increasingly eating into the conversation. Google is the most cited source on most Google platforms. And so your ability to grow your share of voice is being limited by their contribution. But you're not going to be seeing this because you're sitting there and looking at your Google Search Console and you're looking at your GA4. We need to start measuring the impact of marketing across all touch points and have market-aware analytics. This means investing in tracking both traditional search and AI search with a tool that has share of voice reporting like DemandSphere. This means having share of voice on Google Discover where you can use something like GD-. This means making sure you understand your presence on social platforms with a tool like Sprout Social. This means tracking all of yours and your competitor media mentions, and I'm sure there's some fancy, expensive tool for this as well, but I just use Alert Mouse. And understand that there are some channels that can't be measured. Dark channels such as WhatsApp or podcasts or Slack groups. Now, you are all grown-ups. You don't need to be afraid of the dark. There are no monsters there. Marketing has always operated with imperfect measurement. It's not about precision. It's about directional data to understand the impact of your fame focused marketing. And once you've mapped the mathematics of your market, including the share of voice for all of the possible channels that you can, that is when you walk into the boardroom. And instead of presenting some marketing fluff about brand love and the CFO looking at you like you're asking for a pony, you're going to be highlighting that we had a target to achieve 10% growth. With our current projections, we're only going to achieve 3%, and this is exactly the resources and the budget that I need to make up the 7% deficit. The conversations become refreshingly unemotional because they're not spending on marketing. They're resourcing a revenue engine. And if the CFO says no to funding, no problem. Go off, do your calculations, and come back with what share of voice you can achieve with the resources you've been given, what's going to be the long-term impact of share of market, and since it's probably going to be a reduction, are they comfortable with a strategic retreat? Or do they actually want to grow into be the market leader? And I know having that conversation with your boss can feel like you're entering a dystopian nightmare, but we need to do the hard things. We need to be able to invest in showmanship in order to grab attention. We need to make that attention big by investing in a smart content distribution engine. We need to be systematic about that distribution. And we need to pair those two things together in order to drive brand preference for that long-term brand salience, which targets the entire addressable market. That is what true category leadership actually looks like. That is how we do better. And if you're sitting there and you're still feeling a little bit of panic, that's when you subscribe to my newsletter, you follow me on LinkedIn, and you ask me a whole bunch of questions. Thank you.
Awesome. Give up a round of applause for Jess.
Hello everyone, very excited to be with you here today. So I'll be talking about a topic of great interest to me, and hopefully I can encourage you to look into some of these areas that I'll be going through. So it's on e-commerce and marketplace SEO, specifically for larger brands, but a lot of the suggestions that I'm making within this presentation do apply to smaller sites as well. So just a little bit of background. So I'm an independent SEO consultant. About half of my time working in SEO has been as a consultant, working under my own name. Work with a lot of larger brands, quite a focus on e-commerce these days, but also quite a bit of experience in the publisher space, stock photo sites, marketplaces, all sorts of stuff as well. So something to get out of the way is that I am obsessed with product feeds in Google Merchant Center. So this is an area of SEO which I think is very underutilized, and an area where I think a lot of people should be upskilling themselves to prepare for what I think is some areas here related to future of SEO. So in terms of a bit of an agenda that we'll go through in my presentation, so like I mentioned, we'll be talking about Google Merchant Center next as it applies to SEO. Some of the hidden guidelines and quirks with respect to free listings. We'll also be talking about operating at scale for e-commerce sites and marketplaces, category content in 2026, how to kind of think about that and what we should be doing for our clients. Local inventory feeds, that'll be a strong focus here, the top quality store ranking signals, and also more generally, how we can get on top of AI within e-commerce and some future developments around that area. So just to get started, something that I do want to underscore with this presentation is the importance of Google Shopping ads documentation with respect to free listings. This is a really underutilized area of SEO within e-commerce. And there's been a lot of learnings that I've had over the years where it kind of comes back to looking at Google's shopping ads documentation. So as an SEO, I would highly recommend getting a bit more familiar with this area, especially if you're having ranking issues with free listings. There's sometimes specifications in the guidelines that do apply to free listings, but it's not always clearly outlined in there. So something to be aware of is that, as Google suggests, you don't need to be running shopping ads to be successful within free listings. That is basically the takeaway there, but a lot of my experiences have gone a little bit against this guidance in terms of sites, if they stop running shopping ads and they're not getting the signals that Google uses to check on the free listing side of things, I've seen a direct correlation with decline in free listings traffic. So that's something to be aware of. Not necessarily a direct correlation, but I think there are some indirect factors there that can be quite influential. This is another area to be aware of in terms of shopping quirks. The only reason why I've discovered these quirks is purely because these are industries I've worked with in the past. So in particular, wholesalers, rented products, they're actually areas of free listings that in a lot of instances you won't qualify to even be able to rank within free listings. And what I tend to find is that Google gives a lot more scrutiny to some of the really large sites in the space, but some of the smaller players can sometimes qualify for free listings. Similar situation for item bidding on PDPs, where it's not as clear-cut as the rented products and wholesale products, in the sense that you might not be completely excluded from free listings, but there can be a dampening effect where you might just not be very visible at all or be able to rank very prominently. So something that often comes up within the space and something that I'm frequently asked about is, how do you set up your free listings and shopping ads feeds? My experience is that the most common setup is combining into one primary feed. That tends to be the most simple way to implement things, but you do get sites who do like to have distinct channels, marketing channels for the shopping ads and free listings. So they might segment the two, so they can do things like split testing, isolate their free listings feed, so they can do a bit more experimentation that isn't going to impact their shopping ads. My experience is that sometimes this can get over complicated, and you can often come across issues if you do separate the shopping ads from the free listings within your primary feed. So only if you really want to do it, I would suggest going the distinct feeds route. But for the most part, there's a lot of benefit into keeping under the primary feed, and it's really quite difficult to do any kind of split testing with free listings. So a really important area of e-commerce SEO is e-commerce sites that have physical store locations. There's quite a bit of benefit to integrating your physical store locations with your online component of your business. This is an area that I find that a lot of e-commerce businesses that have physical locations, they just can't get their heads around integrating a local inventory feed. So I want to kind of start that conversation and show you some of the benefits that you can get from integrating a local inventory feed. And we've got 4 different examples here of how your local inventory component can show up in search. So you've got number 1 here, rich result snippets that can show. Number 2, within the local pack, you can get your in-stock items showing within the previews there. Number 3, you've got the see what's in-store unit, which can be really prominent on your Google business profiles. And number 4, which is my favorite, and it launched in Australia a year or 2 ago, called the In-Stores Nearby carousel. So you can get a lot of traffic from this unit, especially if you're in a niche where your competitors haven't integrated a local inventory feed. So you can have situations like this where you can actually get a lot of visibility if you are trying to rank for quite high volume queries, where you don't even have to actually rank in the in-stores nearby unit to get visibility. And it's quite subtle, but often, say, for example, if you're searching for a high volume query in Sydney here, you will find that the top ranking products are often stores that do have a local inventory feed. Like this example here, it is ranking as the top product within the product grid, and it is quite subtle, but it does have that nearby tag. So it's the top product underneath that grid result there. So the real benefit of the in-stores nearby feature is that it is one of the most prominent from a spread standpoint. You do have other grid results that can show up in search. You've got deals on, the in-stores nearby feature, fast pickup or delivery, more products, and the popular products. That's the most common one that is highly visible, and on average it does show up in position 1 and shows up for around 82% of all searches within the e-commerce space. So I've got a little reference there that you can learn a bit more about that. Kevin also published a nice study on this just last week, so I've added that in to explore a little bit more on this topic. So in terms of a local inventory feed, the most effective way to be able to measure the success of this is within Google Merchant Center. There is actually a free listings filter within Google Merchant Center and related to organic, and you do have the physical stores filter that you can add on top of that only shows up once you have launched your local inventory feed. So you can see here with this example, we launched the local inventory feed for a small set of locations. So this was about 10 different locations as a test. Then we rolled that out to 200 plus locations. We were able to make the most of the kind of Christmas traffic season there for shopping. And then it kind of stables out and we'll get some consistent results moving forward now that we have the integration in place. The other way to really track this is within Google Search Console, where you do have the merchant listings filter that can show up. And you really have to make an annotation in there when you do launch a local inventory feed, because there isn't any specific subset of filtering that you can use to measure these results for the local inventory integration. So the big thing that is stopping a lot of businesses from integrating a local inventory feed is it really is the most challenging areas of e-commerce SEO. So I would highly recommend checking out some of my resources on this topic and starting the conversation with your clients if you don't already have this in place. Because there can be a lot of benefit, but there can also be a lot of challenges involved. For example, for this site, we've got a local inventory feed integrated. For the online component of the business, the product is showing as in stock, but for the in-store locations, it's showing as out of stock across the board. And in some cases, it is showing as in stock. Other cases, it's not showing as in stock. And the result of this is, if you're not managing your stock levels correctly within the local inventory feed, you can result in Google distrusting your inventory, and your products can be showing as out of stock in your rich results. So that's a bit of a forewarning that if you're not implementing this in the way that has a bit of foresight in how you're going to manage your local inventory, you can come across some issues here. So it just doesn't apply to local expansion. There's also a lot of benefit to ensuring that you do operate on a global scale quite effectively. I've got an example here of a European client I've been working with, where across Europe they do have translated content and in a subfolder structure. That's the way that they've expanded. And the big issue with this site, how they implemented their location selector, is they're not linking to the canonical URL in Search Console. You can see that they've added parameters there for each of their local equivalents. And what this has resulted in is exclusions at scale within Google Search Console. So highly recommend ensuring that your internal linking strategy is linking to the canonical URL, and ideally not just linking back to the homepage as well, because you can come across some issues there for discovery. Quite a basic one that I come across that is rarely implemented for e-commerce sites. This also applies to any kind of business to some capacity. There's a lot of benefit for e-commerce sites in ensuring that you're using organization and website schema on your home page. The real benefit of that is to be able to control your site name that shows up in search results, and also your brand knowledge panel. So there's quite a bit of benefit to this, ensuring that you have the knowledge panel showing, particularly for what we're perceiving at the moment is the future of e-commerce SEO with the business agent rollout. So in Australia, you might see this showing from time to time. You've got this AI chat assistant button that can show in your brand merchant knowledge panel. And the real benefit of this is once you've got the knowledge panel, that AI chat assistant can then show up. But if you don't have it, then it won't appear. So at the moment in the US, this is something that's being tested within Google Merchant Center, and they're giving websites a bit more insight into how this is being used, and you can do some customizations around that. Another benefit to getting your merchant knowledge panel is something that Google has been emphasizing a lot in recent years is loyalty programs and deals with respect to the promotions that you can set up in Google Merchant Center. A lot of this does have heavy overlap with SEO in the sense that you can get your loyalty program information showing in your individual free listing results and also for branding queries like this. So it does end up being highly visible, and it allows you to show that if you have a one-to-one pricing with a competitor, you can then get the upper hand by having your loyalty program influencing the ranking there. So something that comes up quite regularly is category pages. How many words should we have? So Digital Loft did quite a good study on this about what are the top ranking category pages, how much content do they have on them. And the conclusion of the study was that 310 words was the sweet spot, but there's obviously a lot of other factors at play on how much content you should be adding to your category pages, in particular the size, the relevance of the content, that sort of thing. And something that I do like to encourage with e-commerce sites, instead of just going straight to the opportunity of expanding content on your category pages, you should look to ideas like on the primary URL in the pagination, looking at can we expand the number of products that appear on that first URL as a contribution to content, instead of just writing an endless list of words down the bottom. So there's a bit of a balance there with performance, but I do see quite positive results for sites that can kind of nail this. It does really come down to if you have the product range. If you don't have it, it becomes very difficult to get success with your category pages. And it's also good to keep in mind that when you're producing this content, you want it to be something that is still relevant in 5 years' time. You can reflect back on it and you're still happy with how it's looking. So something that I find when working with international sites is you sometimes come across some pretty interesting strategies that are used in different niches. This is one that I haven't seen used prominently, at least in Australia, where you've got your product page URLs and the reviews from them for this specific site have been repurposed in its own subfolder. So the benefit to this site is about half of their traffic then comes from their product page URLs for experience type queries. So if a product is no longer in stock, the review page for the product page still has the ability to rank, and on that page, they're providing an alternative product. So it is important to experiment with different approaches and take learnings from what other markets are doing. And this particular market was in a non-English one, so that can be quite interesting. Another aspect that I think is worthwhile employing for e-commerce sites that I rarely see come up in the space, it's a bit more common in the news publisher space, whereas in your sitemap files, you can actually add an additional attribute in there for the image in addition to the URL as well. So this example here for New York Times, they've got an image lock attribute in there that allows them to get a bit more effectiveness around the discovery of their image URLs. And I've found this on quite a wide scale has quite an impact on image search traffic. So certainly one to experiment with for sites across the board. The real challenge that I have in e-commerce SEO is when I'm working with marketplaces in particular that have many different sub-accounts in Google Merchant Center. This is where the most challenging aspect of SEO really comes into play, where I might have the .com domain, where we are focusing a bit more on an international market, but primarily the US. Might also have, for example, the .com.au. And then you have to get your sources from the sellers and put them into feeds and ensure that you're maintaining a level of feed quality. So situations like this, if you don't have the right strategies in place with your feeds, it can just multiply and create a lot of issues. And a good example of this is when you don't have the full scope of images from your product detail pages that are showing within the feed. So this example here, if we go back to the 3,000 plus sub accounts, this is something that will scale across millions of products for this site. And they're effectively not doing good advertising here because they're not including all of the images from their product page within the feed. Something that is coming up in the near future, which I'm quite excited about, not so much the migration over to it, but there's something that is rolling out called the Merchant API for Google Merchant Center. So at the moment, the default is the Content API. And the real benefit to moving to the Merchant API is primarily the real-time updates. There's a bit more reporting improvements, but for situations where you might get exclusions within your feed because the feed pricing for a product doesn't match what is on the PDP because there's a delay of, say, even a few minutes and you get an exclusion. Something like this should be more helpful for being able to get those real-time updates. So this is something to be aware of. They are removing the ability to access the Content API in August of this year. So it is coming up quite soon. Another aspect to be aware of is the benefit of the top quality store ratings that you can get for e-commerce sites. Google introduced something that I have found quite useful. There's AI summaries that appear in Merchant Center. This is probably the best application of any kind of AI summary in a Google tool that I've found. The real benefit here is that it allows you to keep track of your metrics in a way that Google gives you a bit more specifics on aspects that have changed that contribute to your top quality store rating here. So in Australia, you do actually have the badge that shows in search results. In Europe and some other countries, you do have situations where it is a top tier rating that you can get. So you don't get the badge, but the ranking benefits are still associated with the sites. A great free tool that I would highly recommend using is storeratings.co for competitor insights. What you can do with this tool created by Carl Hendy here is that you can input your competitors, select your location, and it gives you a breakdown on the different metrics that contribute to your top quality store rating. And the real value of this is you ideally want to get to getting a yes within the top quality store section here, but it also gives you a bit more insight in how far ahead you are on your metrics with a bit of a score out of 100 there. So if you want to also do this for yourself, there's a very easy workaround that I found is, so in the US, if you're using a VPN, you can actually trigger for your competitors with the store page URL, the store insights. So that's a good way to see exactly how your competitors match up in Australia, Europe, UK. If you go to this store page URL, you won't see these insights. So you do actually have to use a VPN in order to be able to access them. So where is all of this headed? The big thing that has been coming up more recently is the Universal Commerce Protocol. You can see an example here that I came across for Wayfair, where they were one of the first sites to integrate this within AI mode. So this is the primary surface where this does show up, where it's essentially integrating the checkout within Google's experience. So I think for a lot of SEOs, you might think, oh no, this isn't good. We're circumventing the need to go to a product page. But I think this should be looked at in a bit of a different way, in the sense that your goal is to get the free listings visibility, and then you still get the credit for your work for the sale that comes through Google Pay in this example. So it is important to be aware of these factors that are coming. Currently, it's being tested out for a small subset of sites, but it is something that Google has been constantly giving updates. Even, I think it was yesterday, Google did an update in terms of some information about the agentic features that are coming with UCP. So this is one to really get on your agenda, and most of the stuff I've gone through in this presentation really does set you up quite nicely for this new system. It's also good to aware what the kind of history of changes that have happened in the lead up to UCP. The big change was that for a period of time in Google Merchant Center, you could integrate your checkout within your free listing results. So essentially, a user would click on your listing and go straight to the checkout but now there's no longer the need if a site is eligible for UCP. It's also good to keep in mind, how does this apply to ChatGPT? A lot of the updates that I've been tracking in the shopping space with ChatGPT have been pretty in line with what Google is doing in AI mode, but the latest announcement from ChatGPT is that they are at least scaling back their UCP program. So unlikely to see a great deal of developments within the shopping space for ChatGPT. There's also the business agent rollout, which is related to this. And in more general terms, the real opportunity here is to focus on Google Merchant Center, your product feeds. It's really your ticket to success. And thank you.
Thank you for the great introduction. I feel fine. I'm fine. This is fine. I need that little dog meme on this cover slide. No, Sydney is great. Technical SEO is dead. I called this technical SEO is dead because they wanted a tech SEO talk from me. I could have called this tech SEO is dead. I didn't want to piss off more people, though. There is an asterisk to that. But the reality is things have changed. There was a massive change in AI back in December. Did y'all notice that? These systems started doing things for you. Guess what that means? I've been building stuff for a long time. It was good. It was fine. You could use it. Now, it's scary. I think we're fine. I'm scared for the next generation because all those tasks that new people at agencies do, guess what? AI is banging that out. We already talked about me. This is my next job till the robots take that one. But technical SEOs have been the janitors of the internet. It's an actual Ahrefs wall, but that picture of me is AI generated. You're going to see a lot of me in this. Sorry. What we mostly did, wrote a bunch of tickets, begged for priority. Please implement this. I do some development. They don't usually let me touch the code. Major companies anyway. Smaller companies, sure, I'll go beg out some stuff in WordPress. Totally fine. And then I was just waiting and waiting and waiting. If you're lucky, you could go and make the changes, or maybe there was some shortcut system. I once rewrote the entire web standards at IBM to say that I, as the SEO team, own title tags and meta descriptions and canonicals and meta robots, just so I could actually implement things myself. If I have to wait, I'm going to be waiting for 5 years. So we built a whole system called patches at Ahrefs. You can do a bunch of stuff with AI, bulk fix. You got 800 missing meta descriptions. No one should ever have had to written those. Usually that's like, you're new at the agency, you're an intern, go bang these out. Terrible process. Well, that job is now taken by AI, 100%. So now the fixes, implementation, all this stuff is like, click of a button, find the issue, implement it, done. This was my dream project. I actually talked about this back in 2017. This is from an old article in Search Engine Land that's now deleted because SEMrush owns them, so they deleted all my articles. Should have probably been called serverless. That's technically what the dev community uses for this, but I think it was Dan Taylor coined Edge SEO, and I'm like, well, it's Edge SEO now. Was I wrong to do this? To do it this way? Not really. Would I do it this way now? Would I build patches now, this year? If I had to start over, the answer is no. Automation is the right strategy, though. We want to automate everything. I have been doing this a long time. I am not that LinkedIn bro that is telling you SEO is dead. I am not that Twitter bro that was talked about earlier. You want some of my history? This is me clustering keywords to form a content strategy using natural language processing, which we now know as AI. Back in 2016, this was at an SMX in, I think, San Diego. This is me trying to teach SEOs about machine learning in when was this? 2017? I think this was SMX London. Look at my use cases. This is an actual slide from my presentation. You've probably seen some quote unquote modern tools for this stuff, like determining the relevance of a paragraph, a page, a sentence to a query. Yeah, there are some like toolbars and stuff measuring this thing now, some tools that do this. I did this a decade ago. Finding the internal link opportunities. Suddenly that's a big deal this year, like using AI to do that. A decade ago. It was not good enough to take people's jobs. It would help people then. Automated redirects. Actually, this is a script that I wrote, I think first back in like 2015. We would take the full text from your site, from archive.org. I taught pretty much every SEO in existence about the CDX API from archive.org. It's an old article in Search Engine Land back in like 2015 or something. You can match it. Exactly have, here's my old page, here's content from it, here's where it should go. And guess what? You can automate the output and say, like, I need to redirect from here to here. You can do that in multiple different formats, whether you're doing that on the edge in Cloudflare Workers, whether you're, on whatever system you're on, Nginx. All this has been possible for a very long time. They got tired of me talking about this. They're like, we're not ready for AI, stop. It's a real email. I got like 3 of these. So I stopped talking about it, but I did not stop doing this. Now everything is AI and I love it. That is how it should be. Have y'all played with Claude Skills yet? Actual picture of me playing tennis back when I was young and didn't have a bad knee, by the way. The one like non-AI generated image. Claude Skills are like SOPs. You tell it what you want, you tell it how to do it, and it kind of just goes and does the thing. So I wrote skills, since we talked about redirects, I wrote skills that would look at Ahrefs Best by Links 404 report, determine how many referring domains, or pull data from Ahrefs Web Analytics, Google Analytics, based on some business logic, determine, these are ones I actually want to redirect, go pull all the content, match them, output that, implement it even. In a number of different ways. You can write, you can edit those like with Cloudflare Workers or a number of different ways. I wrote ones to redirect hallucinated URLs. I wrote one, and again, like you can pull that from your analytics data. I wrote ones to determine if there's a better match for it, if there are overly broad redirects. Every single thing that you do as an SEO is basically a skill, or can be done as a skill. There are even skills to create the skills. You just kind of tell it what you want, it'll make you a base level one. There are skills to evaluate, test the skills. Skills that improve the skills. That's scary. And then you have the agents, which kind of like run the skills, they do the tasks. It's a giant do SEO button. Isn't that the dream? I just want to push a button and it does SEO for me. It's also a nightmare. By the way, I love that it just put a background of Ahrefs when I was like a do SEO button. It's like, there's the Ahrefs dashboard. Awesome. This isn't like one at a time. A lot of people, when they think of agents, they're like, oh, it's like logging into my WordPress and going page by page and making these changes. Guess what? Edge workers, what I talked about with Cloudflare. I can go implement 80,000 redirects in 3 seconds. WordPress API, I can go rewrite all the internal links. I can go add content, change content, whatever. I can change a bunch of stuff. Certain things I might actually have to do, like, depending on how it's done. Like if I have a GitHub, I can just do it all instantly. But yeah, if I need to change a template file or something, I might have to log in or have the agent do it. But you can make tens, hundreds, thousands, hundreds of thousands of changes overnight. You can run these, wake up in the morning, and it's like, SEO is kind of done. Scary, right? Technical SEO is dead. Again, I could say that SEO is dead. We also automated basically our entire blog update process. Well, like 85% of it. We're in the process of automating new content creation. And just to give y'all a peek of what that looks like, in my opinion, 85% of every blog says the same thing as what other people said. It's general common knowledge. AI is great for that. It's that extra 10, 15% that matters. And so what I want to do is free our writers up from spending 85% of their time writing the same thing that AI is good at to actually having multiple people input their experience, their stories, their knowledge in every single one of our blocks. That will be better content than we have ever created, and we're known for having really good content. But the boring parts are dead, and the parts that all those new folks in our industry did are dead. Checklist SEOs, you're going to be replaced. Good SEOs are curious, creative, think in systems, solve hard problems. That's what's needed right now. You're still fine. Most of you in here, we got a ways to go. Not dead yet. There's supposed to be a zombie me there. I don't know what happened with that. We had everyone at HRS basically writing skills. And by everyone, I mean we had our PMs, our data scientists, our devs, our marketing team. And in some cases, we just tried and said, hey, AI, can you do this? And right now the answer is, if I just ask AI, this is my measurement, I'd say it's about 60% of the way there. Not great. Use a skill builder, which is pretty automatic, gets it 80%, honestly pretty good. But that last bit is what matters. What I talked about earlier, where I started adding business logic to things, when I started outputs, different systems, maybe I need this as a CSV export or over to Sheets or just to automatically do it. Let me connect my Cloudflare, let me write to my WordPress API. That is the stuff that is gets it closer to where it needs to be. But if you have a good marketer, or even some of our PMs actually wrote some really great skills, because they kind of know what y'all want, which is awesome. It gets really close, scarily close. Of course, check the results, make sure it's good enough. Again, we have an evaluation metric that we use internally. Eventually, we may not need SEOs. Right now, there's some problems. We still need people. Modern best practices, real-time knowledge, the models lag. They're working on that. They're basically working on streaming updates to these models. There's a lot of weird edge cases. Guess what? I already solved a lot of those. So there's going to be more, obviously, but there's a bajillion SEOs out there. All that has to be done is one person to build something to solve for that edge case, and then it's just available. There are hallucinations. Love that photo. It's a real photo. No. They're working on solving those. I know of 3 methods that they're working on that will probably solve these, and I think we will not really see hallucinations in these systems within the next year. Then there's hard decisions. Do I delete a tracking script, lose business data for speed? Probably not. Would the AI system do it? It might. And there's art to some things. Brodie was talking about e-commerce earlier. Out of stock products. What do? Do you delete it? Do you redirect it? Do you leave it live? Add something like subscribe to let me know when this is back in stock. Do I try and upsell some other products? These are not out-of-the-box solutions. There's no real right answer to that. Even if I try and leave it live, Google may just de-index it anyway. So, And then they're non-ideal solutions that sometimes are the right answer because it's future-proof. I just don't want more stuff to break in the future. There's a cost of changing everything, of re-architecting everything, or even fixing it. When people have I need to fix every single issue in my site audit, I'm that is a waste of time. Most of those don't matter. They're not going to have an impact. And I would never tell anyone to go do it. Now it's easier with AI, but there's still a cost to doing it. So sometimes cost may be more than the benefit. Businesses are obviously going to be very slow to adopt. And there are a number of reasons for that. 1, they're businesses, they move slow. 2, there's risk. What if it deletes the whole site? There's been a lot of stories of this, of entire databases, all kinds of things. Security issues. You know, most companies are not allowing like Claudebot to be, or whatever, OpenClaw or whatever they're calling it now, to be installed on machines that have access to company data. Why? Because it is risky. Did y'all see the thing with the API keys? Like someone just like got 28,000 API keys using Claw? Yeah, not great. There's gonna be government regulations, all that red tape. That's gonna slow things down. We got another decade probably. We'll see. But what does all this mean? If everyone can just click a button, do the things, what's gonna matter are things like taste, your opinions, your experience. The SEOs that will be valuable in the future are ones that have like business acumen, that do traditional marketing, that make those emotional connections. So if you're not working on upskilling on those things, I would do that. Because who is going to win is whoever has that taste, is what it's referred to as. Whoever can kind of guide these things to do something beyond what is normal, what is traditional, to come up with a new idea, to be creative. I was going to have another slide here, but I was told there's something I cannot talk about. This was actually our April Fool's joke April Fool's Day joke last year. It's really hard for me to say for some reason. Everyone's moving to AI everything. It's not really untrue. The best jokes always have some amount of truth to them. I will say if you scroll to the bottom of hrefs.com homepage, there is something there that stands out. Y'all can do that now if you want. There is something interesting coming, very interesting, that I think a lot of y'all will appreciate or hate or kill me later, but we'll see. It is awesome. It will potentially make your lives easier, hopefully. That's my goal. I don't want to take anyone's job. I really didn't want to come up here and be like, everyone is dead. SEO is dead. Anyway, that is all I got. Thank you very much.
Round of applause. Stay there for 1 second.
This is James Murray, and in 1879, James Murray was enlisted by Oxford University to begin developing the greatest dictionary of the English language that had ever been created, a compendium of the definitions and the histories of every word within the English language. There was a previous team working on this, but they were not making the desired level of progress that Oxford University required, so they brought James Murray in to work on it. He had a team of lexicographers that worked in his home, in the back of his home pictured here, and this team, they debated vigorously about which words were worthy of inclusion within the dictionary, and it actually took them 10 years to progress from the word a to the word ant. In order to get the help that they needed to assemble this dictionary, they appealed to the general public. They wanted clippings from books, from newspapers, from journal articles, all throughout history, so that they could assemble this compendium of the uses of these words over time. And the British Post Office actually installed a mailbox directly outside of James Murray's house where the team worked. And this may potentially be the only time in history that the British Post Office took this measure to help them deal with the volume of correspondence that his team received. So if you're wondering, yes, this is a grandiose metaphor about AI search engines. What I'm hoping to do with my talk with you today is to show you how you can get your brand and your content inside of this post box and ultimately into this groundbreaking new technology that we're dealing with, not dictionaries, but this revolutionary new technology of AI search engines. So I'll be taking you on this journey today. My name's Frank Duignan. I will say I'm not a computer scientist. I'll be honest about that up front. And my greatest achievement in that regard would probably be the D that I received in Year 10 IT. However, I've been working with the Prosperity Media team for the past 3 years, working on a wide range of SEO strategies, and we're also developing what I think is really one of the best generative engine optimization services that you can find within the region. So I'm hoping to share with you today basically as much as I can of what we've learned over time about generative engine optimization, and particularly how you can apply these learnings to your content strategy. So before I go on, can I get a quick show of hands in the room? Who in the room believes that generative engine optimization is something that's truly unique to search engine optimization and should be considered a unique service in this way? A few. So I assume that the rest of you are more in the camp of it's essentially a repackaged version of SEO, doesn't need to be considered too much of a separate service. Okay, well, my position on this great SEO civil war is that I simply do not care. So for the purposes of this presentation, a lot of the things that I'm going to be talking about to you today, they won't be entirely revolutionary to you if you've been working in SEO for a while. You'll probably be quite familiar with these concepts. However, I do believe there is a lot of value in understanding these concepts within the context of large language models and AI search engines. So that's the value that I'm going to hope to provide to you today. So what I'm going to do specifically is look at these 3 different technical functions of large language models and explain how you can create a content strategy that will allow you to leverage these technical functions and earn greater AI visibility for your brand or for your clients. These being content chunking, natural language processing, and query fanout. So starting off with content chunking, this is the process by which large language models break text down into smaller and more digestible sections of content. So to cut to the chase, you are no longer competing against entire web pages in quite the same way that you used to be. In the world of 10 blue link SEO, you had your optimized web page, it was going up against other optimized web pages, and the totality of your web page needed to be optimized to achieve this greater level, to achieve the greatest level of visibility. It's not quite the same anymore. Large language models prefer to look in terms of chunks rather than entire web pages. They're also looking at books and PDFs, so you can see why it's a lot easier for them to primarily process smaller chunks of text rather than entire web pages. So you need to be creating content chunks that are very succinct and very comprehensive to achieve the greatest level of AI visibility. So a standard chunk is 512 tokens, or about 400 words. This is sort of the standard base unit of content chunking that these models were essentially trained on. So your chunks might be a bit larger than 400 words, they might be a bit shorter than 400 words, but that's the general base level that you can think about content chunks as being. You can actually paste your content into this tool on the OpenAI website, the OpenAI tokenizer, and you can actually see how your content is going to be tokenized by the OpenAI large language model. So that gives you a sense. You can see it kind of roughly corresponds to 1 word to a token, but not in all cases, and sometimes a word may be broken up into multiple tokens. So what this means is your chunks need to be really self-contained and comprehensive. This is an example from a website that I operate. This is the ChatGPT output for the most popular lawn bowl brands. You can see this chunk that I've written using dot points to create a high level of information density, really just serving as much information as I can to the system in the shortest number of words. And that has allowed me to earn this visibility within the large language model. And if you can get this right, there's a lot of rewards for your brand, because up to 15% of the text that is produced by large language models is made up of snippets of about 50 characters or less that can be found verbatim online. So there's a lot of potential for you to control the narrative about your brand and about your industry if you can pull off content chunking effectively. Now, with all that being said, the entirety of the web page that sits around a content chunk is not completely irrelevant in this conversation. There's also this concept of parent document retrieval. What parent document retrieval means is that when a large language model comes across a chunk that it wants to include within an output, will actually look at the entirety of the web page or other elements of the web page to ensure that the chunk is being placed into an appropriate context. So it's looking at things like your headings, as well as the key takeaway sections that you might have right at the top of your web page. Primarily, it's doing this to ensure that chunks aren't being taken out of context and they're being served in appropriate contexts for users. So it's important to have really logical, nested heading structures that are going to make a lot of sense for a machine that's trying to crawl them. And key takeaway sections, these are something that's really valuable. A lot of people have had a lot of success with key takeaway sections because you're really front-loading your content with your key insights and ensuring that all of your chunks are being shown in a correct context. Here's an example of an output from AI mode for the major differences in road rules, Australia and New Zealand. This is a topic that at Prosperity Media, we took 2 different approaches tackling this topic for 2 clients that we have. And you can see some of the visibility that we earned. You can see particular content chunks that were cited from these 2 different pages. But you can also see at the bottom there that AI mode actually looked at the entirety of the web page and has recommended them for essentially further reading for the users, showing that the entirety of the web page is being taken into consideration and ultimately being recommended as a high-level source for this particular topic. So that's how you can see content chunking and parent document retrieval in action at the same time. The large language models are using headings as contextual anchors. This is an example of a web page on the Prosperity Media website. We have this information about how much does SEO cost, talking about monthly retainers. Just a nice succinct chunk of text sitting below a heading in a very logical manner. AI mode has come across this and has decided to feature it because of the quality of the information in the chunk and also the fact that it's been placed in an appropriate context with the heading. So your headings do have a really, really important part to play in how your chunks are going to be interpreted by a large language model. So what this means, and this is good news for those of us who might be dealing with some more limited resourcing, your content strategy can focus more so on chunks themselves. If you have particular passages like customer questions or query fan-out queries that you want to be optimizing for on your website, you don't necessarily need to create an entire web page for each and every one of them. You can actually target these terms with smaller chunks of text and place them around your website in appropriate locations. This is also going to allow you to easily key in on specific user intents. So when users are using large language models, they're typing in longer tail queries, and also these models have a really high level of knowledge about the people using them already. So people might be more willing to ask about what is the best SEO agency for startups, or even longer tail queries than that. Or the model might just know that the person they're talking to is a plumber. So when they ask about the best SEO agency, they want to know who's the best SEO agency for a plumbing business. So you can have content on your website. Again, you don't need an entire web page for each of these terms necessarily. You may be able to target them simply with content chunks on your website. So some AI-friendly key takeaways when it comes to content chunking. When retrieving text, large language models prefer to look at chunks of around 400 words. Page-level context remains significant thanks to parent document retrieval. And chunks should be self-contained, sit within an appropriate context, and also tackle opportunities for large language model personalization. Next, we have natural language processing. This is the system by which large language models can comprehend and interpret human language. So how is it that I can go to ChatGPT and ask it to summarize the primary themes of War and Peace in the style of a stand-up comedy routine? This is just a computer system that I'm dealing with. It has no intrinsic ability to understand human language. And this is quite a complex request that I've given it. It has to know what War and Peace is, know who Jerry Seinfeld is, and replicate his comedic style. So the reason that it can pull this off is with natural language processing. I'll now give you a very rapid-fire, oversimplified run through of how natural language processing works, some of the key ideas that sit within natural language processing. So we've already talked about tokenization, where text is broken down into individual words. The next stage is pre-processing. This means that the text is cleaned up for interpretation and filler words within a sentence can be removed if they aren't intrinsically necessary to understanding the meaning of the sentence. Through feature extraction, the raw text, individual words are converted into numerical values because this is a computer system, and at the end of the day, it's relying on numbers to understand the meanings of words. And what really makes this whole process possible for a large language model is semantic spacing. This is how these systems understand similar words and synonyms by applying similar numerical values to similar words. And this allows it to kind of map out a deeper understanding of human language by understanding how words relate to each other. With named entity recognition, it can understand people and places and events within a sentence. So when I ask it about War and Peace, it knows I'm talking about a book by Leo Tolstoy and not just the concepts of war and peace. And then with dependency parsing, it fully analyzes the grammar to understand and actually construct sentences in response to the inputs and the information retrieval that it's done. So how can you sort of get in on this process? Now you have some understanding of how natural language processing works. Here's how you can start to take advantage of it for your content strategies. So writing content within the style of semantic triples, this is something that's become quite popular. A lot of people have had success with this. What semantic triples means is that you're constructing your sentences essentially in the most simplistic possible way, in the form of subject, predicate, and object. So saying Apex headphones are waterproof. This is the style of writing that's easiest for a large language model to understand what you're actually trying to say, as opposed to saying experience the immersive waterproofness of Apex headphones. There's still definitely room for that type of marketing copy. However, if you can find tactical ways to use semantic triples within your content strategy, that's a really effective way that they're going to be able to understand what it is that you're trying to say. Some more examples of what you can do when it comes to optimizing your content writing strategies for geo. Instead of talking about having a high quality SEO agency, you might talk about having an APAC Search Award winning agency, because the APAC Search Awards is a separate entity that a large language model is able to understand, and that is going to lend a lot more authority to your statement that you're a high quality SEO agency, because you actually linked it to something outside of yourself or a claim that you've made generically. So for example, if you ask AI Mode about the best car rental companies in New Zealand, its second favorite source to cite is an awards page from Hertz that was published 9 years ago. So if you can go out there and win some awards for your brand, large language models absolutely eat it up. Instead of talking about having long-lasting battery life, you can talk about having 18 hours of battery life, because numbers are the natural language that these systems actually most easily understand. So anything you can do to ground your writing within the world of numbers is really, really effective. And instead of talking about being preferred to competitors, talk about how 85% of customers prefer you to competitors. So according to a 2024 study from Princeton University, the statistics addition in content can improve GEO performance by 33.9%. So go out there and generate some favorable statistics about your business and start broadcasting them, because large language models really lend a lot of credence to them. So that's natural language processing, but it's definitely not the only thing that's necessary for these tools to actually understand human language and human concepts. For a more complex idea like your brand, a large language model is going to rely on a knowledge graph. And this is kind of a simplistic representation of what a knowledge graph might look like for this brand Apex Tech. So in the center of this knowledge graph, we have the brand Apex Tech. And close, within that central node of Apex Tech, this brand produces products like the Apex phone, the Apex watch. The Apex phone has features of a 20-hour battery life, and the Apex watch has the feature of water resistance. And a large language model can also understand that this brand is servicing personas like swimmers and personas like power users. So you're going to have content on your website that's kind of targeted to all of these things, right? You're going to have pages for your products, pages explaining your features, and talking about how you service different personas. That makes it really, really easy for these knowledge graphs to be constructed about your business. But if you want to take your geo strategy to the next level, you can draw these additional lines, make it really, really easy for this system to understand how all these different ideas relate together. So for example, if the Apex phone is compatible with the Apex watch, you want to make this as clear as you can within content on your website, so that the system can understand this compatibility. And then when I go to ChatGPT and ask what's the best phone that's compatible with a smartwatch, it has this information to hand about your brand. And similarly, if you can have content pages or chunks talking about how the feature of water resistance is valuable to the persona of a swimmer, the feature of 20-hour battery life is valuable to the persona of a power user, again, these lines are really easily drawn within the system, and it's going to be more willing to serve up your brand to people using these models. So one way you can go about this is conducting audits of your website to ensure that you're feeding large language models the right information about your brand. With things like AI info pages, comparison pages, homepage FAQs, you really need to make sure that what exists on your website, as well as off your website as well, you're feeding the highest quality information that you can to a brand. So really take a look at what you're doing on your website and what you need to do to make it really, really easy for these models to understand your brand better. AI-friendly key takeaways for natural language processing. To interpret human language, large language models must apply numerical values to words. Large language models also draw on knowledge graphs to support natural language processing, and using techniques like semantic triples and statistics addition allow you to take advantage of natural language processing for GEO. So the final component that I'm going to talk to you about is query fan-out. This is where large language models conduct multiple simultaneous searches to provide comprehensive responses to queries. So we know that large language models offer seriously detailed responses. If you ask a tool like Gemini, what's the best running shoe, it's going to give you a really detailed breakdown of the top overall picks, the best trail running shoes, the best shoes in different categories. It's going to give you supporting information about how to choose your category as well. The reason that they're able to do this is through query fan-out. Now here's a rough approximation of how query fan-out might look for a term like the best running shoes. So it's, the system is not just going to be running searches looking at the best running shoes. It's going to have sub-queries that sit within the best running shoes. It's going to allow it to serve the highest quality information to its users. So it's going to look at the best running shoes for speed, the best daily trainers, the best trail running shoes, and also sub-queries within each of those queries. It's going to draw on a really wide array of information from around the internet, and that allows it to provide super detailed responses to users. So this really highlights the importance of working on creating an online consensus. And offsite GEO is really a topic for a whole other talk. Don't have time to get into too much detail about that here, but you do definitely need to start thinking about how your brand is represented around the internet. So if you go on a tool like Perplexity, it's actually going to show you exactly what sources it's using to generate its responses. So if you ask it about the best electrician in Sydney, it's looking at these different sites like High Pages. It's going to look at brand pages. It's looking at Reddit. It's looking at product review. This goes way beyond what's on your website. So start thinking about what you need to do, what Reddit communities you can start interacting with, what kind of review strategies you have in place to get people speaking about your brand in a positive way all over the internet. Now, query fan-out is also really vital for helping large language models tackle personalization. In addition to these longer tail queries that we're throwing into these AI models, these models also know sometimes a disturbing amount about us already. Whether it's from chat memories, from Google Workspace integrations with Gemini, or if you're using the Meta AI system, it's looking at your Facebook and your Instagram data. If you're using Grok, it's looking at your X data. So rather than just throwing in queries into the internet based purely on the initial prompt that was provided to them, it's going to add information based on what it knows about you as a user. And this allows it to provide really tailored information to users of these services. So it's really important that you deepen your understanding of your customers so that you can meet large language models where they're at and serve up information that's going to be highly appropriate for the level of detail that it wants to provide to customers. So this is an example of something we use at Prosperity Media called an empathy map to really deepen our understanding of customers that we're writing for, asking questions like what do they look at, what do they think and feel, what do they say and do, and who do they listen to. It's really important that you have a deeper understanding of your customers than ever before, because that's exactly what large language models have. And if you want to earn visibility within large language models, you need to serve up this information to them with this level of depth and insight about your customers. You can also optimize your strategy for fan-out queries. So like the example I showed earlier about chunk creation strategies. With a tool like Haul, you can actually look at query fan-out queries and just add these into your content strategy. Really optimize for these queries specifically, and that's going to really heighten your chances of being surfaced when this query fan-out process is run by an AI model. So some final AI-friendly key takeaways around query fan-out. Large language models run many sub-searches to deliver more detailed responses and to draw on an online consensus. This system also helps large language models to personalize outputs for users. Your content strategy must reflect these fan-out prompts rather than just the initial prompts that users are putting into the systems. So if you put all of this together, these are some of the results that we've achieved at Prosperity Media, kind of bringing together all of these ideas like query fan out optimizations, writing in ways that are highly optimized for GEO, and we achieved 341.47% ROI on this particular campaign. So if you are interested in starting a GEO content strategy, particularly from scratch, I have created this 15-step checklist, which you can download at the QR code. And yeah, these are the 15 steps that I would be taking if I was just starting from scratch, trying to get a GEO content strategy off the ground today. Or if you miss it, hit me up on LinkedIn. So I hope I've provided some insight to you today to let you know how you can get your content into the post box and into the ground floor of this groundbreaking new technology that we're all dealing with, and really plant a flag for your brand and for your content that's going to last for years and years and years to come. You can also download my slides at this link or get in touch with me on LinkedIn.
Okay. And applause. Awesome.
Hi, everyone. I'm Destiny, as you guys just heard, and I'm going to talk to you guys about e-commerce SEO today, which is very exciting. Bit of an intro. Will did a great job, but just to point out, I'm head of SEO at Princess Polly. I've been doing SEO for 7 or 8 years. You can add me on my LinkedIn if you want to hear more about how great I am, because I'm always keen to talk about that. But let's get into it. Search is changing. Kevin did a really great job at explaining the search behavior and how it is changing, but I have a couple examples. And what I want everyone to do right now is to think about a product or a service that they've recently purchased or are going to purchase. That could be new shoes, a laptop, a new car. Does anyone have an example they want to share?
A laptop.
Did I hear cat harness? Wow. What do I have something prepared for you, Kevin. Thanks so much. Back in the day, it was very simple. We used to just type in a keyword on Google and the 10 blue links would come up. Now it's not so easy. We go to ChatGPT and we get very specific. We type in cat harnesses for an orange cat with ADHD. If you guys know orange cats, you know that most of them have ADHD. Are there cat people in the room? Am I speaking to dog people? Fantastic. You guys get me. You can add me on LinkedIn and send me photos of your cats if you like. The results, we get very specific product placements. There's literally an orange cat on a harness. And I don't know if it has ADHD, but it might. So we know that results are getting very specific, but the question is, how do we actually get there? In e-commerce, how do we make sure that we want our products to come up for these very specific searches? But the question is, how do we? My goal for you today is to understand that search in behavior and to actually have tools to implement visibility in LLMs, but also to maintain with Google. So let's understand that shift. And I don't have to go too much into depth because Kevin and Brodie and everyone else has gone into it, but I'll do a bit of a recap. So we know that user adoption in LLMs is increasing year on year. It's still quite low, but it is increasing. We also know that it's becoming easier to check out in LLMs and Google with UCPs and instant checkout. And we know that the conversion for LLMs is very, very high. So it's worth actually having a proper SEO GEO strategy to make sure that we're future-proofing our businesses for where the shift in the user behavior is changing. This is a big slide with a lot of words on it, but ultimately what I'm saying is that user behavior is shifting from short form to long form search queries, and the LLMs need that information to serve it. So those data points could be styles, sizing, occasions, locations, personas, or in my case, my cat's mental illness. We also know that everything is very personal and complex. So we want to make sure that our products do appear in those search queries. So let's break that down very specifically. I have some prompt data where I've used query fan out to actually understand what LLMs are using to retrieve that product information. So for query fanout, which Frank did a really great job at explaining very technically, basically, when you type in a prompt, it breaks it into a couple of different variations, and it uses that information to pull in the best information. For this example, the prompt is best black dresses for cocktail events. And then in the query fanout, which I've taken from Profound, you can see that it actually changes it a little bit into little black dresses, LBD, 2026, best cocktail dresses for a wedding, and it uses a variation of search terms. It gets all that information to serve a product. Another example is using jeans. So when I'm looking for a pair of jeans, it isn't just blue jeans. It's size, it's wash, it's style. It's a lot more specific. And the search to return that has to be specific as well. So it's personalized and there's styling cues. The result? Sometimes there's shopping products, and we know that's increasing. And we know that the visibility for this is super important because conversion is very high. And we can see in this graph that ChatGPT is actually giving more products now more than ever. The biggest misconception, and I think most people would agree, that GEO isn't a separate strategy. It's working on things that we know are best practice, but reframing it and reviewing it to be better. I really liked what Jess Schultz said, that SEOs do need to be better because previously it was very easy to just do a checklist, and now we actually have to think about different channels, different priorities, and different way of searching. But ultimately, GEO is just really great SEO. It's just the things that we might not have done previously. Google is still a big traffic driver for all businesses, so we don't want to jeopardize our visibility there. And we know that search is changing, so how do we actually change accordingly? So the challenge is AI visibility for e-commerce. And I'm going to give you the exact playbook that you need to consider to execute it properly. So there's 3 things we want to consider. It's technical accessibility, which Frank did a really great job at talking about. There is long tail product queries, and how do we actually use that within content to scale? And what James has been speaking about, which is digital PR, to reinforce that all of this is underpinned by trust and visibility, which is at the heart of actually driving consumers to purchase. So let's talk about some action points. No one has said this yet, which I think is very interesting from a technical perspective. LLMs can't see JavaScript. So if you have any critical elements in JavaScript, review that, because it will not be seen by LLMs, or by Google, honestly. It's not news. How LLMs do digest your information is using your HTML, getting your structured data, and looking at your feed. Very simple, but it's not new. We've been doing this for a long time. However, if you've neglected it, it's time to revisit it. Feed management. Feed management is definitely something that Brodie has touched on before, and I'll sum it up in a couple of points. Basically, make sure that you do have your feed and it's submitted. Make sure it's optimized. So make sure you have your keywords in your product name. Make sure you have all the variables within your feed properly inputted, and tailor your feeds accordingly to each channel. So Google has a requirement, ChatGPT has a requirement. They are similar, but they have different attributes. So review that. And if you want to get really expert and you have a lot of time and patience, you can A/B test different ways to optimize feeds. Schema. This might be a little bit divisive because I know a lot of people think that schema isn't important for LLMs, but it's my opinion that it is. And I have the microphone. So there is a study that says that 57% more AI overviews triggered on long-tail search queries compared to those without schema. So schema is a direct pathway to actually influence and give content to LLMs directly. And this is my favorite topic right now, reviews. So if you remember query fanouts, it was using all those data points to inform a result. The easiest way to get product-led queries into your data is by utilizing your reviews. In e-commerce, if you have reviews on your product pages, as an SEO, you've probably neglected them because there might be another department or they haven't been very influential. But as multiple people have said today, reviews influence LLMs. And those reviews have your best content. And you don't have to rely on a copywriter to do it most of the time. So the issue is that these reviews, most times, are actually written in third-party JavaScript, so they're invisible to LLMs, which is astounding because it's such an easy way to actually implement content at scale. I'll give you some examples. If I were to go into ChatGPT and ask them to tell me what this page says about this product with the reviews on the page, it's not too bad, but it pulls in a third-party website. If I ask it directly, what does this website say, it's crawling somewhere else, and it's giving me a Trustpilot review. It's also linking me to the Trustpilot page. So you're losing that direct link, and you're losing that brand narrative that you should be able to control directly on that page. It's not too bad because this Trustpilot review is actually pretty positive, but you can imagine how bad it would be if you didn't have a very good Trustpilot review. And just to highlight how informative these reviews actually are, is anyone into skincare on Skin Talk? Yeah, absolutely. You guys know how important it is, hand in the back, that there's different use cases for each product. You have different personas, you have different queries that you're looking for. These reviews, for example, talk so much about absorption, lightweight, how it's healed their dry skin. So informative, so valuable, invisible to Google and to LLMs. It goes on. There's about 4,000 reviews on this page that are completely invisible. It goes on to talk about ingredients. So how great this ingredient list is, how nourishing the ingredients are. And then my favorite thing that it talks about in these reviews, acne. If you've ever struggled with acne, you know how it's one of the biggest concerns for people, for teenagers. However, all these reviews talk about how great this product is for acne, and LLMs have no idea. So if your prompt is, what is the best moisturizer for a teenager with acne-prone skin, your competitor is going to come up because LLMs have no idea that you have so many reviews for this one product. And it gets scarier. I have another example where I asked Claude to show me the reviews for this product. 17,000 reviews. 17,000 reviews that talk about how amazing this product is, completely invisible to Google and LLMs. And it goes on to say that you can just ask. You can literally just ask Claude or ChatGPT, what do these reviews say? And it says, I have no idea. And then we can do it again, where I went into ChatGPT and I asked, what does it say on this product? And it's super scary because it literally pulled in Reddit data saying that this product sucks. It doesn't, by the way, it's a great product. And the sizing's bad, the quality is bad, and then it suggests people to shop somewhere else. So if you're not controlling your reviews, you're losing that brand narrative and you're eroding your quality of the brand. So let's look at what it looks like when reviews are optimized. This is another skincare brand. I'm obviously on a journey. This is Go-To, and if you know Zoe Foster-Blake, she's amazing. I did the same exact experiment where I looked at the URL and I asked him, what do the reviews say? It pulled the direct reviews on the website and the actual rating on the website. So it's not sourcing third-party information, you're controlling the narrative, and if people do want to shop, they can directly with that link. I also like Go-To Skincare for their reviews because they're structured very well, and we know LLMs love a lot of structure. So these reviews structure for use cases, for concerns, for different queries and different personas, which is fantastic. And they even have FAQs that are written by users and then responded to by the business. And of course, Princess Polly has our reviews marked up. I'd be amiss if I didn't shout out our best-selling product, the Nelly dress. It's polka dot, it's trendy, it's beautiful. There's 500 reviews on this page, and you can see with ChatGPT that they're actually getting pulled through. So we're controlling the narrative, and it's a viral product, so there's a lot of people talking about it. And we also have our reviews marked up for height, weight, occasions, and uses. So it's very easy for us to actually maintain those query fanouts and actually target them appropriately. And the best part about it, we don't have to write any of these. We're actually getting users to write all of these reviews. And so we don't have to have a resource for a copywriter. It's so simple. But ultimately, the issue with not doing this is that if you're not optimizing your reviews, you're leaving high intent searches, read money, on the table. And when you do optimize reviews, you're preventing your negative brand association, you're controlling your narrative, you're linking directly to your website so it's easier for people to click through and convert, and you're targeting visibility for high intent searches. So it just makes sense to optimize your PDP reviews, your product reviews. So a bit of a walkthrough. I'm gonna bring in my cat again. Basically, when you're typing in on ChatGPT, a long tail prompt, you get fed some products. Why do you get fed those products? Because, well, there's a lot of reasons, but partly because you probably have some content on the site that matches that prompt and a bit of authority. The second part of that is authority, right? So we have our internal trust mechanisms that allow users to validate their search query, but we also need to have a foundation of trust from external third parties. I'll go into that more in a second. But how do we actually check and see if these reviews are pulling through and optimized? It's very simple. You just check your code. If you're not technical SEO, this isn't scary. It's very easy. You look in the source code, you find a review. You can also look at your structured data to see if it's pulling through that way. I almost guarantee no one is actually marking up their written reviews in their structured data. You probably have your aggregate rating, but you probably don't have your written reviews. So you can double check that. And then a bonus is having both of those things, HTML and your structured data. And the result, you can see our products show up. It's so easy, you guys. This is using Profound, which is a great AI visibility tool to track your prompts. Back into the external authority. So James probably spoke about this a bit before, but it's about getting mentioned in highly influential publications that influence LLMs. For us, that looks like Reddit, Who, What, Where, and Wikipedia. Who, What, Where is because we're fashion. It might be G2 if you're SaaS. Could be a couple others. But ultimately, we know that we want to be seen in these publications, in these forums, to influence our prompts and the results. How do we do that? Digital PR. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I know exactly how to do a campaign and to do outreach and know what publishers like, because that is a whole different discipline, as we heard in the panel before. It takes a lot of work to actually do that. So we outsource it. We have an agency. What I've learned from the agency is that our campaigns need to be relevant, right? Like James had an example earlier that Princess Polly is probably not going to be in a hot dog eating contest. But we will be we just launched a campaign earlier this week, best US cities for a concert, because we have Coachella and festival wear, so it makes sense for us, it's aligned. And we know which publishers we're going to target with that campaign. And then we can track and monitor those campaigns, looking at backlinks and brand mentions. I do have a quick win for you guys, which is very fun. Instead of going to your developer and saying, my reviews aren't in my HTML, how do I mark them up in my structured data? There is a Shopify. If you're on Shopify, there's an app coming out that will just do it for you. So that's super easy. Good takeaway. And then how do we actually measure this impact of utilizing reviews, digital PR, and a technical foundation? You can look at your citations, your brand mentions, your brand sentiment, and your revenue. You can also look at an AI visibility tool. I like Profound, but there's heaps of other great ones. when you are looking at your prompts and tracking, I tend to look at a category level. So instead of looking at the individual prompt itself, I like to look at the category because results can change, they're very personalized, but if you're winning the category, you're likely increasing your visibility. And then also with these AI visibility tools, you can easily review your query fanouts to influence how your reviews actually pull through. So, easy checklist for you guys. It's not a strategy. You do still have to review your overall marketing, implement your best practice SEO. These are just a couple of things that we can reframe and look for in terms of LLMs. But ultimately, do a technical audit, look at your reviews, look at your feed, look at your structured data, see if your reviews are pulling through, and maybe hire a digital PR agency to help you with those brand mentions. To wrap it up, GEO is just really great SEO, but we reframe it to actually change for that change in search behavior. Thank you guys so much.
Hi everyone, it's been an awesome day so far. Thanks James for putting this on and for having me speak as well, if he's here. My name is Brie Moreau, and today I'll be talking about, we are analyzing over 2 million AI citations, and here's what we found. The reason why we are analyzing is because, does anyone in the audience know who Mike King is, if you're into GEO and AI SEO kind of stuff? Basically, he runs a conference in New York called SEO Week. It was the first one last year, and it's again in April, and I won the speaker pitch for that conference, which means a lot. The amount of research that, yeah. Our data science team has put in over 1,000 hours of work, at least 1,000 hours of work to kind of put all this together. Even though I'm showing you some snippets of what I'm doing or what we're doing, it's been a lot of work, but we've found some really, really cool stuff that no one else has ever found. My presentation style is quite different. I'm trying to give you concepts. It's less about kind of structured data in a PowerPoint presentation style. I've only got 30 minutes, so to try and give you guys the concept of how machine learning, AI, and all these things works is quite complicated. So what I expect from this for you guys is you start seeing, get some new words, some new things to research, and some kind of ideas or new ways to think about how all of this works. Probably the best way to say that. So here's a bit of our resume. Most of you might know who Stake is. Peter Makinovic, who spoke here last year. He's the SEO lead from stake.com, and he's a technical genius. And we basically, in 10 months, got them from position 30 to #1 in the world for online casino, and a whole bunch of other keywords in that thing. As Dejan was talking about on the panel, online casino is the most lucrative keyword in the world, and also probably the most competitive and hardest. And we did this in 1/10 of the budget of the competitors. And this is because we're able to do things with data science and machine learning and make things really, really precise and really, really efficient. And this has been our success. I didn't need to show you how hard it is to rank for online casino. I think you all know that. And this is something, it doesn't also work, it works in other niches as well. This is what happens when you hit position 1. You basically max it out and you go down to position 2, then back up to position 1, and kind of sits around there. But this works in all niches. The process for backlinking that I'm going to just quickly share with you before I go into our research with AI citations. So yeah, this is like, 15, 14 million monthly traffic. It just keeps going. It consistently works. Google loves this process. It also works in fresh websites as well. We're basically able to launch a whole bunch of different stuff with our backlinking strategy that we developed. How do we do that? We do it with our team called White Light Digital Marketing. Been running for about 10 years now. It's a US-based enterprise, and we mainly work with Fortune 500 and also private equity. But we also work with small clients as well. We don't have much presence in Australia because I've been overseas for a long time. I also have Peter here as well. He's our head of SEO. He is a GEO genius, and he also has an AI YouTube channel. Ask him about it, okay? But basically what we are is we're a data science company that does backlinking. It's pretty much the best way to describe what we do. Now, how do we get those results? Most of you would know about the Google content leak, the API leak that happened in 2024. And this is some information from that. What you see here is page embedding and site embedding. That's basically Google saying that it's vectorizing everything. It's vectorizing its all its search. It's using the BERT LLM to vectorize everything. And what site focus score here means, that is topical authority, okay? So site focus score is basically topical authority. And then over here, you've got site radius. Now, site radius means how closely related is something from the main topic. So if you're talking about protein powders, and a website's talking about protein powders, if the website starts talking about electrolytes, how closely related to the large chunk is it, okay? So it's important that, basically the short version is, this is why guest posts don't really work these days anymore, because you need super relevant content that's clustered in a very, very strong cluster. The same way that you do topical semantic, content, we do semantic backlinking, and that's what we call our process. Now, just to make it really simple, there's a whole bunch of math behind what we do, but to keep it really, really simple for you, we do two variables. It's very binary. Is there page level traffic, right? And why I'm asking if there's page level traffic from the website that we're building a link from is because of a patent called Reasonable Surfer patent. And what Google's doing with Reasonable Surfer patent is when you have a website that's ranking for a keyword, let's say it's a blog post about protein powders, and you're trying to rank for protein powders, Google is tracking users going onto that page, clicking that link, and seeing what happens when it hits your website. Google is tracking that. So building links that on pages that don't have web page traffic, not website traffic, page traffic, it's really not a very strong signal for Google. So if it has page traffic, it is going to be a very, very strong signal. And the second thing here is backlinks for pages that are ranking for related keywords, okay? It needs to rank in the top 20 for the keyword or related keyword. That's really hard to do, right? That's really hard to do. How do you build backlinks at scale for keywords that are ranking for the keywords you want to rank for? It's a two-part process. We do it with a team of 80 backlink builders that we have to train up in a specific process and a tool set that we've built up over years. And we've also built what we understand is the largest database for links in the world. We spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on this process, and we have to do a whole bunch of data science work in order to extract these links out. It's probably the best way to say it. But if you can also do this process as well. You can just go in and find the top 20 results for keywords that you're trying to rank for, and just create prospecting lists and outreach, and just only get links from those sites. If you only get links from those sites, you're going to start seeing results like I was showing up there before. And I've been presenting this for 5 years. There's no other company in the world that's taken this up and actually running with it. But people and companies that are actually doing this process internally with their own backlinking teams are getting the results that I'm showing you there. Cool? Sound fun? I mean, this is the results, right? Now, so that's the backlinking part. Now, what I want you to do is pull out your phone. Now we're going to get into AI research. Pull out your phone, open up ChatGPT, type in best hotel to stay in Hawaii. And what I'm going to ask you is when you do that, I want you to see if you've got either Four Seasons in there or Ritz-Carlton. Okay? I want to see, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you now, who doesn't have Four Seasons or Ritz-Carlton? Who doesn't have it? So probably half of you did it. So you don't have, if you scroll down a bit, you don't have Ritz-Carlton or Four Seasons? Anyways, you can see that there's only like one person in the room. You do have it? He does have it, yeah? Only, let's just say half the people in the room actually did this process, right? Everyone has Four Seasons or Ritz-Carlton. That's quite interesting, right? Everyone thinks that ChatGPT is super personalized. And I'm going to tell you, the more that we've researched this, there's so many bugs and there's so many gaps in the model and all the models. It's really, the more we look, the more we go, holy shit, this is pretty poorly built, if I'm going to be honest with you. So we're going to come back to this because I'm going to show you why this is happening. And this is happening across all keywords in all industries. So in your industry, there is a Four Seasons and a Ritz-Carlton that's owning all the traffic and getting all the traffic from the LLMs. ChatGPT isn't as personalized as you think based on these models because pretty much all of you will sit there and say, oh, I wouldn't stay in the Four Seasons or Ritz-Carlton, it's over $1,000 USD a night, right? So it's not really personalized for you. Like for me, I'm into adventure stuff. It'd be picking something that's like, next to a surf break because it knows I like surfing because I live in Byron Bay, you know what I mean? Like that's my best version of a hotel. But what's really funny, look what it wrote down here. Hotel Waya, an intimate, romantic, adults-only vibe. What does ChatGPT think about me? I don't know. So some parts apparently, I'm into adults-only resorts, apparently. So I'm just going to run through these slides quite quickly. I think you can just take some photos. And there's references at the bottom. It's this because again, this is like an hour-and-a-half presentation. I've taken most of the slides out. I just want to give you a couple of core pieces. We all know that the LLMs work better than Google, and we all know that they convert a lot higher. Okay, and obviously people have been mentioning that today. We know this process. The interesting thing here is everyone says if you want to do, not everyone, but some people say that if you want to do good, you want to rank in the models, you just need to rank in Google, just do good SEO, which is kind of ironic that Destiny just said that, but there's different context here. The reality is it's only 12% overlap with Google. This is a study from Josh Blaisdell from Profound, but we did the same study as well. And we did the same research. We got 14% on our data study. But we're going to come back to this 12% and this overlap at a later point. So just remember that 12% overlap. Now, it is ChatGPT results are 26% overlap with Bing. That is actually really quite significant. And that iGaming guy before that was asking the questions. So we've done all our research in iGaming and other niches too. But just a pro tip as well. So what I was trying to say when the panel was on and James was, I kind of screamed out and said, everyone should be doing prompt injections for Bing. I saw the best SEO in Russia show me some of the work he's doing in iGaming. This is Black Hat. There's White Hat GEO work with casinos, and there's Black Hat. We do White Hat because Peter was like, I had a version was like, we do White Hat versions. We're not the bad ones, but and what they were doing was they were buying traffic from adult sites and streaming sites, and they were doing prompts. So when you open up a new tab, it would do a prompt injection and actually search within Bing and actually pick the client's website and do it from there. And he showed me the results of what they were doing with these casino niches, and the ChatGPT was blowing up. I'm getting recorded. Yeah, so not that you need to do prompt injections into Bing, but what I'm saying is if you're doing social sharing or any of these things, you need to think about Bing. Bing is the key to ChatGPT. That's what I'm showing here. Now, this is where it gets really, really interesting, and I'm going to slow it down because this is when the killer comes into the room and whatever, the kind of movie kind of situation. So this is a data study by Anthropic, and this is called sample poisoning. And what Anthropic were proving was that it only takes 250 documents to change an LLM. And in this situation, what Anthropic did was they went out and they changed that the Eiffel Tower was actually in Lyon, not in Paris, in Lyon. And they did it in 250 documents. That's really scary, right? Like, that's really scary. And what's even scarier here, it's 250 absolute as a number. It doesn't matter whether the data set was 600 million, 2 billion, or 13 billion. It only took 250 documents across. It doesn't matter the size of the data set it's working with. So knowing this information, obviously you can do bad things with this information. You can also do good things with this information, right? So where do you put the 250 documents? Yeah? That's what we want to know. I'm going to run through this process quite quickly, as I said, but the way that I'm communicating GEO, AI, SEO, whatever acronym you want to call it, is technical is indexing, same as SEO, right? You've got indexing or technical, content, backlinks, and then tracking reporting. We're trying to give it an SEO kind of mindset so that people can kind of, it's much more than that, but just to break it down and keep it simple and digestible, this is the way that I'm explaining these things. Now, who knows Common Crawl? Who knows who Common Crawl is? Okay, there's a few of you in the room, all right. Common Crawl is I'm very emotional about Common Crawl. It's great, it's amazing. What it is it's basically an open source data set that all the LLM models are using to basically, that's the data set, this is the foundational data set that they're all using to create the LLM models, is the short version of what's going on with Common Crawl. So if you're in Common Crawl and you're in their index, there's a very high probability you're going to be in the LLM, right? Now, what's really cool about this picture is this is all the information of the internet that's been vectorized into three-dimensional space. Now, when you're dealing with like LLMs and these large language models, they're working in like 2,000 dimensions. And the only way to work in 2,000 dimensions, because our monkey brains can only handle 3 dimensions, we can't conceptualize more than that, is to use really complicated math. So to take something from 2,000 dimensions and like think of like mirrors and crystals and fractures of things and bouncing around, it's quite sophisticated. It's very high-level math, this stuff. And to turn it into this beautiful image is really, really beautiful. I mean, look at this. This is all of humanity. This is the whole internet digitized, right? So in this area here, you've got, Britney Spears, cat harnesses, World War II, like everything is in this. And this is what it looks like. This is the visual representation of humanity digitized. Pretty beautiful. I've actually printed this out on canvas and I have this in my living room because this is what I'm solving every day. This is what I'm chipping away at and trying to get into 2,000 dimensions without taking psychedelics. Yeah. So I'm really good friends with the guys from Common Crawl. I didn't speak at Saigon SEO. I ran some community events at Saigon SEO last week. And I did the community events with Stephen from Common Crawl. And yeah, so I know a lot about technical stuff around how it all works and all this kind of stuff. So I'm actually really close to them. So and I'm very lucky to have this position. It's just because we understand how important this is for all the AI models. If you come and see me afterwards, I can tell you some stuff off camera that's actually really, really cool about all this stuff as well. There's so much more to this whole story than you understand. And the fact that I get this information is quite cool. Now, so you want to check if your site or a site is indexed in Common Crawl. Why is this important? You want to see whether your website or your client's website's in there, or if you're buying backlinks, you want to see whether the backlinks you're buying are in Common Crawl. You guys see where I'm going with this? Yeah? Because this is the new Google. This is the new index. Being indexed in here is the same as being indexed in Google. If you're not in Common Crawl, you're not in the index, therefore you're invisible on some level. I'm kind of generalizing right now, but that's the way to look at it, right? Your whole site will not be in Common Crawl, it'll just be fragments of your site or your client's site. Search Atlas has an SEO tool as well, and they actually have as one of the features in the tool when you're looking up URLs, it'll show you whether or not it's indexed in Common Crawl. The data study that we're doing, actually working with Surf for SEO and Search Atlas as well. Search Atlas is quite progressive. I love Ahrefs. Don't get me wrong, but they haven't put that feature in. Patrick, you might want to put that in. So you want to be in Common Crawl. Other sources on the internet, like as Destiny was showing you, she had a slide up there about who has visibility, and it was like Wikipedia and Reddit, and there was a couple other ones in there. There was like Vogue and a couple of her competitors, right? So every single industry and every single niche will have core places that you can submit documents that are relevant and topically relevant for the niche in the industry that you're trying to rank for. So you need to figure out where those places are. And the pile is another data set that's used. I'm just putting this up more as to kind of show you how you need to think about those 250 documents, right? The pile has like, it's another data set that has like, GitHub in there. GitHub is exploded right now because of LLMs as well. As of course, everyone knows Reddit and Wikipedia, but GitHub is exploding as well. And there's a lot of PubMed stuff, like a lot of research-backed stuff as well. So you need to figure out where the LLMs are looking for authoritative content within your industry and your niche, and that's where you need to place your content. That's where it needs to sit, because that's where the model's weighted. I'm not going to go into model probing right now, but I kept this slide in here because I want to explain quite a few people today, speakers were talking about like doing a web search where basically ChatGPT, it goes out and you ask a question to ChatGPT, it goes out and uses SERP API, retracts that information, then it kind of consolidates and does re-ranking, all that kind of stuff. That's one way that it works. The other way that it works, that the models work, is by using the foundational model. And what that means is like ChatGPT, Anthropic, Gemini, they all have foundational models. And being in the foundational model is where you want to be. Of course, ranking in Bing is going to help you, or ranking in Google, because it's going to take this information and process it. But if you're in the foundational model for that specific LLM, you're going to have more authority and more credibility, and it's going to contextualize the results so that the LLM will be more confident in using your website or your client's website as the source of truth, if that makes any sense. So if you want to research model probing, you can do that. That's something that's to see whether or not you're in a foundational model. And there's a lot of different ways to do that kind of stuff. Content, unfortunately, I missed Frank's presentation. I heard it was really, really good. I was practicing my presentation, so I probably will. Anyways, the point is, take a picture of this slide if you're interested in content, and you just saw Frank's stuff as well. This is from Robert Nekiel. I don't know how to say his name. He's Polish. He was at Chiang Mai SEO. He's great. He's a really good source of information as well. I think his website's called like sense.ai or sense AI. If you type that in, you'll find him. He doesn't have programs in English at the moment, but he's a really, really good source. I just have this slide here so you guys can just kind of go, these are things I need to check out, research further. This is kind of probably what Frank was probably explaining to you. It's about how does the LLM currently see you, and how do you want it to see you, right? This is really, really important. Now, you want it to see you in a specific way, and Steve Toft talks about the funnel collapsing. Basically, you need to make sure you have a lot of comparative. You want to basically rank or have prompts that are doing comparative style informational search queries. It's like, is this software better than this software, and why is it better? Right? This is the area you need to be in the LLMs. You need to be basically doing comparative-based kind of content, because that's where people are making that decision. They jump in and going, what is the best software for XYZ? And you need to be able to go, this is the reasons why, and these are the benefits, and have that broken down. And the cool thing here is, as you can see, like within 1 month of doing the optimization, this is commonroom.io, and this process, you can see that within 1 month, they basically changed it from being GTM intelligent platform rooted in community to AI-powered GTM platform focused on pipeline generation, right? And this is what you guys, this is the output you need to get to with what you're doing. Steve Toft has a course called a Truth Alignment Formula or something like that, Truth Alignment Method. I haven't done the course, but I know Steve is really, really deep into this kind of stuff. So if you want to get good at that stuff as well, that's where I'd probably start looking. And now, Metahan's been mentioned a few times today. Metahan, I think, has unlocked the most amount of things in this research phase of where we're at the moment. At the moment, like when I go through the research that we've been doing, it's kind of like Bitcoin mining. Like we're just finding, it's just so easy to find stuff that no one else has found. Like it just really is. And Metahan has done a really great job at actually kind of breaking things down and making it make sense. Now, what's interesting here, people have talked about, the freshness score within, content, which doesn't make any sense. Like fresh content, like content that's a week old is going to outrank something that's been around for 5 years. And it doesn't matter whether, like, you're sure if it's a news article about, the war in Iran, that makes sense. But if you're trying, like, in this situation, I think that we asked it how to build a rocket ship, and actually that might change a bit, actually. Well, let's just say, history of, some country. And the fact that they're using freshness score, and these are the things that we're seeing when we're doing more research into the space, it just doesn't make any sense. And what's interesting here, so I'll just give you some points from Metahan's research, is you can see underneath the ranker model, he's got use freshness scoring profile true. That means it's obviously using fresh content. Enable query intent. People have been talking about fan out query and basically what type of query intent it is. Like, this is saying, is it an informational query? Is it a commercial query? Is it a transactional query? Basically, you need to make sure that you're covering the bases you want to cover to answer those questions in those specific formats, right? And then the last one here is vocabulary search enabled. And what this means is, let's just say you want to rank for best protein powder. What ChatGPT and the other models will do is it'll go out and create different variations of these keywords. It might go best protein powder, then buy whey protein, cheap whey protein isolate, and probably create like 6 or 7 different variations of the same kind of query in different words. And then what it does, it goes out and it searches for all those 6 or 7 different queries, grabs all the chunks, brings all the chunks back together, and then sorts based on chunks as opposed to one single query. Does that make sense? So to probably go on from to evolve from what Frank's been saying as well, you need to cover the different queries as well. Like you need to basically like not just one query, but the kind of different. You need to hit it from all different angles, because when you hit it from all different angles, you're basically the model is getting weighted better. It's a heavier weight as opposed to answering the question in one context and one context only. Does that make sense? Cool. We're getting through it pretty good, aren't we? Yeah. All right, yeah, so basically new content ranks everything. Doesn't make any sense. It's really stupid. All right, backlinks. This is the research. So the first thing is, we did this in cooperation with Data for SEO. They gave us the data. The new study that we're doing at the moment, we're working with Search Atlas and SERP for SEO. What we found with data studies with our data science team is that you don't necessarily need a massive data set to get the same results. You can do an exploratory data set of 10,000, and that'll kind of get similar results to 1 million or 2 million. This is what we found, and other data scientists have found this as well. And I will get stuck into it. So, do I need to go through all this? Yeah, okay, basically we take a bunch of AI citations. We took it across, I think, 30 different industries. We generated a whole bunch of prompts. It's actually really, really hard to generate prompts and at scale. And I have to say that Ahrefs has done the best version as like a off-the-shelf product. Ahrefs has the best kind of prompt generation because we've tested all the major tools, and Ahrefs has the best version for that. But anyways, we had to create a whole bunch of different prompts across 30 different categories and like thousands and thousands of keywords. It's actually really hard to do. And then basically we scrape all the content off the page. And I'll show you some information about unrendered JavaScript in a moment as well, like what Destiny was talking about. And then basically what we do is we scrape that content on the HTML off the page, and then we vectorize it into 3 dimensions. And then from that, we're looking for different things. We're looking for clusters and abnormalities, and basically patterns is what we're looking for. Now, this is called a correlational matrix. Who knows that term? Is anyone? Some of you know what that term is. This is a data science term. So this is actually from an old data study that we did for SERP for SEO. We did a data study with them, and we took the algorithm pre-helpful content and then post-helpful content. We did 3 different stages. And so what we're looking for in a correlational matrix is if something is positively correlated or negatively correlated, right? We took, I think, like 100 or so factors, and this might be like, page title length, entities on page, amount of content on page, amount of sentences on the page, all these page load speed, all these different variables. And we put them all into this thing, and we're basically running mass amounts of data through this and seeing whether there's positive correlation or negative correlation. And what you're able to do when you have a massive data set and see this, you're able to reverse engineer the algorithm, because you can see what's pinging and what's not pinging. And it doesn't matter whether it's Google or whether it's an LLM, we're able to decode what's going on. And in this situation, what was interesting with these before helpful content and after helpful content, we're able to see how the algorithm was shifted before to what it came after. So we can look at an algorithm at any point in time with a snapshot using the same data pipeline that we have here, and we can just see how things are progressing, how the model is weighted differently. Does that make sense? Does that answer all those things? Yeah? Factors. So as you can see, like blue is positively correlated and then red is negatively correlated. So we'll come in and we'll look at this and go, oh, there's all that blue there. And negatively correlated is actually, it doesn't matter whether it's positive or negative, it's still, there's a signal there. And so we'll go into that factor there and we'll go, what is that factor? Is that interesting? Can we find more factors around that factor that make sense? And is it relevant? Like it might be something really benign, like the amount of length of an alt image tag or something. That's not going to have much weight. But if it's something else like time to first byte for a website, and we see that, we're like, okay, that's something that's worth investigating, and we look further and further into the process. So there's 2 kind of parts to what we figured out. This is the kind of like the teaser, the first part, and the second part is where the real gold is. But what we figured out is that cosine similarity is the math that you have. So like if you're doing like an angle, like if you want to rank for Apple, is Apple a tech company or is it a fruit? if it's sitting next to banana in three-dimensional space, it's a fruit. But if it's sitting over here next to, oh shit. If it's sitting next to Google over here, I'm not going to explain what cosine similarity is, but the point is, I think we've done pretty well so far. The point is you can see here that we know the sweet spot across this data set for what the cosine similarity needs to be for the AI citations. So for an AI citation, we know that this is a sweet spot for this metric here. This is unrendered JavaScript, the same as Destiny was talking about. This is why the LLMs don't like it, because it creates noise in the models. And you can see how things just kind of have a sweet spot, right? So what we're able to do is, let's just say you want to rank a page for AI citations. We're able to sit there, like in the example of Prisoners Poly, right? They want to rank for a specific bunch of stuff. They're using Profound. We go into their Profound account. They extract all the AI citations for that niche, and then we run that process through what we're doing here. And for that specific client, for what they're doing, we're able to get an exact sweet spot for what the cosine similarity needs to be for different factors on the page for that specific niche. Does that make sense? Somewhat? Yeah. It's like SERP for SEO, basically, but we're doing it for AI citations. So this is quite interesting and cool, okay? Just interpreting it for you. Now, we actually built the tool that does that. It's an internal tool that does that process. Now, this is the gold. This is basically the mining of the Bitcoin, the really easy Bitcoin mining. Now, you know at the start I asked you to pull out your phones and type in best hotels Hawaii, and we all got, Radisson, or was it, Four Seasons and Ritz-Carlton, right? So, as I said to you, in every single niche, there is those ones that just stick around. Now, if you look at this visualization, on the left-hand side, these are all prompts. These are just kind of word prompts. On the right-hand side, these are all AI citations. And you can see a pattern, right? You can see a pattern there, yeah? This pattern is called co-citation similarity. And this metric that we've figured out, or the metric already exists, but basically we know why those pages are ranking and how to manipulate that and to become Four Seasons and Ritz-Carlton. Yeah? Yeah, that's big, right? Cool. This is why I'm speaking at SEO Week. And this is, again, this is over 1,000 hours of research. So what co-citation networks mean is document A is linking to document E and F. There's nothing valid there, but document B, C, and D are all linking to G, H, and I. And what this means is it's creating a network. And co-citation comes from research papers and documents. And if a lot of papers are citing the same documents for that query, then it obviously has it's authoritative in that niche, right? So this is what co-citation similarity is. And it's actually it is a simple math, but there's a math behind it, and we can extract out all the AI citations and get the co-citation similarity in your industry or the industry that you're working in and figure out what's important and what's not. Now, this is an example. This is for blackjack, just for the iGaming guy. We took 3,000 AI citations around blackjack, and we found 127 that are in the node and the network, right? This is backlinking. This is the backlinking in AI citations of the future. This is how you need to conceptualize and how you need to work. So basically, this is all those Ritz-Carlton and Four Seasons, right? These are the sites that are coming up consistently. And what's interesting here is another term I don't have time to explain to you. These green nodes here, that's called harmonic centrality. And this is really, really important. This is the PageRank of the future. This is what Common Crawl is using. This is what all the AI models are using. And you need to get your head around that term there. Because what these green two nodes are, this harmonic centrality is what the social media algorithms are using. This is basically, it's who's the influencer and who's following the influencers, basically. This is what it is. And this is how the robots are crawling really efficiently. They need to be able to crawl really, really efficiently. Now, what's happening here is those green nodes are the strongest ones, and these are also very strong too. Now, imagine the green node is the influencer, and all the other ones around it are the fans, right? Now, what if we managed to get a link from the influencer pointing to us, right? You get it? This is where all the AI models, these are where all the AI bots are starting their search and their crawl. This is where they're all starting. You need to be in this network, right? And we know how to get into the network, but I don't have time. So this is, again, so harmonic centrality is really, really important. 95% of AI citations are junk, okay? So if you're using Profound or Brand Radar or SERP for SEO, you'll find that most AI citations get shown once or twice and just never come back. There's still some value to them, but most don't have much value. It's a simple way of saying it. Listicles, we figured out why listicles are ranking really high. It's because of co-citation similarity. And we figured out how to input ourselves into that network so that when the AI bots come in, that they associate us as part of that influencer cool kid crew, right? And we built a tool for it, bang. We managed to figure out how to put backlinks and AI citations together and actually build both of them. Where I talked about that 12% overlap with Google and AI citations. This is that 12% overlap. This is for anyways. And then we did one last thing, and then I'll stop. I promise, Will. So what we did, so in this situation here, again, we had this massive data set. We have this massive data set. We plugged into SERP for SEO. We're basically figuring out how to do AI citations at scale, pretty much automated. And we plugged into SERP for SEO, and from our data set, because we spent so much time on our data set, we actually ended up getting a hit rate of Chinese characters like that. That's actually 7%. So we actually have 7% of coverage. And I'm pretty sure that Destiny from Business Poly would understand that having 7% of AI citations that are on a page in our database is like quite a lot. It's very, there's a lot in that. Anyways, I will stop now. Thanks for listening. You can get an audit from me if you want, and hit me up on socials. And I'm going to be at the talks, well, the second talk, which is at the bar. So if you want to come and chat to me, you can.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you, Brie.
Cool.